This morning, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our own Minority Leader McKean.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Honored.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile,
Here.
Arndt, Bacon, Baisley, Benavidez, Burnett,
Here.
Bird, Bockenfeld, Bradfield, Caraveo, Carver, Catlin, Cutter,
Present.
Doherty,
Here.
Duran, Escar, Exum, Froelich, Representative Froelich, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Representative Gray, Representative Hanks is excused. Herod, Holtor, Hooten,
Here.
Jackson,
Here.
Judah,
Here.
Kennedy, Kip,
Here.
Larson, Montine,
Here.
Luck, Lynch, McCluskey, McCormick,
Here.
McKean, McLaughlin,
Present.
Michelson Janae,
Present.
Mullica, Neville, Ortiz, Pelton, Pico, Ransom, Rich,
Present.
Ricks,
Present.
Roberts,
Can you hear me? Oh.
Sandridge, Sirota,
Here.
Snyder, Soper, Sullivan, Tipper, Tatone, Representative Tatone,
Here.
Valdez A, Valdez D, Van Bever, Van Winkle, Weissman, Will, Williams, Woodrow, Woog, Young. Mr. Speaker.
Right there.
Just one.
With 64 present and 1 excused, we have a quorum. Representative Bacon.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the reading of the Journal of Thursday, January 14th, 2021, be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative Bacon. You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. The motion passes. Announcements and introductions. Representative Holtorf and Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And on behalf of House District 65, and then
And on behalf of House District 64, and in consultation with Representative Arndt, our chairwoman of the Ag, Livestock, and Water Committee, we wanted to announce to this esteemed body that we will be hosting the informal tour on February 10th with an inclement weather day of February 12th to travel into northeastern Colorado to tour some ag operations. It will culminate at Buffalo Springs Ranch, and I want to thank Representative Valdez in the back, because I am bolo and boots on Friday, and I think that's awesome that we represent our Western heritage, so I appreciate that in light of the National Western Stock Show that's not being held this month, but will be next year. So you can get 100 miles from the urban corridor, you can see the country, you can smell the air out there, you can learn a little bit about rural Colorado as we try to bring the rural-urban divide closer together. So we invite all of you. I think we have 5 or 6 people that have already emailed us. And you have a chance to get on my old horse and get a picture. Okay, I'm going to feed you out at Buffalo Springs Ranch. If you are vegan or vegetarian, that's okay. I have a daughter that is also. She can make you a soy burger. Coconut milk and all the things that she learned when she went to CU. I don't understand it, but she obviously learned it. And we got it out there too in the country, so here we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Holtorf and Representative Pelton. And maybe I'll call on the staff from each caucus to make sure that the details for the trip are distributed via email to everybody so that they can look at their calendars and get back to Chairwoman Arndt and Ranking Member Holtorf. Any further announcements and introductions? Seeing none, that brings us to third reading of bills. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to Senate Bill 1.
Senate Bill 21001 by Senators Winter and Priola, also Representatives Harrod and Sandridge, concerning modifications to programs enacted to provide relief to certain businesses impacted by severe capacity restrictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Bill 1 on third and final passage. Third reading and final passage. Happy Friday.
You have heard the motion. Is there discussion? Representative Harrod.
Oh, did you want to speak?
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like a Rule 21C.
Upon the request of Representative Larson, he'll be granted Rule 21C. Representative Harrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. I know we are not to set the precedent to come down on third readings to speak to our bills, but this is something that I must lay on the record. Since March, the necessary public health guidelines that have kept employees and customers safe have placed significant strain on Colorado businesses. Senate Bill 1 provides much needed relief to Colorado businesses that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Small businesses, minority-owned businesses, have situated in economically distressed areas, businesses owned by persons with lower incomes or who have historically been barred from access to credit or capital, have been disproportionately impacted. While this bill cannot do everything for all businesses in the state, it can make a significant difference for many of them that fall into these categories in the category of disadvantaged businesses. COVID-19 has had widespread impacts across the economy, and every Colorado business has felt the persecutions and the repercussions of the necessary public health restrictions. But due to a variety of factors, there are certain businesses that have been particularly harmed or unable to access meaningful relief. The businesses that this bill will help have been disproportionately harmed by the effects of COVID-19, and they lack the financial resources that make it easier for other companies to weather the economic storm. The businesses I am talking about today are likely to fail at much higher rates, and that is why this bill is so critical. Some have asked why this bill is necessary and what is its purpose. We all enacted this program during the special session on a bipartisan basis. I'd like to thank my co-prime sponsor from El Paso County, the honorable gentleman from El Paso County, for signing up in support of this bill. This bill makes a number of adjustments not accounted for in the bill that we considered 2 months ago. With a special session lasting a mere 3 days and with the speed at which we all conducted our work, it is only to be expected that some of our work required some fine-tuning when we return. This bill does just that. It is in a true Colorado for all, every Coloradan has equal access to relief and financial support for their distressed business. Senate Bill 1 is aimed at achieving that goal by allocating funds to all disproportionately impacted businesses, including those owned by those who have faced historical inequalities and have had diminished access to capital or lacking significant banking relationships. On that note, let me point out the benefits of this bill to minority-owned businesses. Just one of the 7 types of disadvantaged businesses that this bill will help. As noted in the legislative declaration of the bill, these companies have endured the effects of systemic discrimination that has limited their ability to be successful, limitations exacerbated by the pandemic. According to the 2020 Small Business of Color Recovery Guide prepared by the Federal Reserve Banks of Kansas and Atlanta, people of color face persistent structural barriers to acquiring capital, knowledge, and market access to start and grow their businesses. Small businesses owned by people of color also experience higher loan denials and interest rates and lower profit margins than their counterparts. They have limited opportunities to develop and grow thriving businesses and have had an average business value that is only a third the average of business values owned by white-owned businesses. These factors have impacted such businesses in their ability to weather the economic downturn on their own and in their access to federal financial support resources. The September 2019 report issued by J.P. Morgan and Chase Institute titled Place Matters, Small Business, Financial Health in Urban Communities found that 89% of majority of Hispanic-owned companies and 95% of majority Black-owned companies, most small businesses operated with a cash buffer of 2 weeks or less, as compared to only 35.9% of majority white-owned small businesses. An August 2020 study by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York titled Double Jeopardy COVID-19 Concentrated Health and Wealth Effects in Black Communities concluded that many Black business owners have had weaker bank relationships, making it harder to get loans and more likely that their businesses will be undercapitalized and could not gain access to federal government's majority pandemic relief program, the Paycheck Protection Program. A September 2020 article issued by Bankings Institute also reported that the Paycheck Protection Program initially relied on traditional banks to deliver loans, which favored existing customers and large banks and disfavored Black and Latinx businesses, which led to underbanked or unbanked not getting access to these loans. And a matched par test conducted in April 2020 found that Black business owners were more likely to be denied such loans compared to white business owners with similar application profiles due to outright lending discrimination. Indeed, in a July 2020 article issued by the Center for Public Integrity called Coronavirus and Inequity reported that the 14% of Paycheck Protection loans over $150,000 for which information about business owners' race and ethnicity was reported, more than 83% were received by white-owned businesses as compared to 2% by Black-owned businesses, and less than 7% by Hispanic-owned businesses. Other factors have also contributed to the disproportionate impact on minority-owned businesses. An annual report for fiscal year 2020 issued by U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission Office and the Advocate of Small Business Capital Formation concluded that minority-owned business owners and their workforces are more likely to be negatively impacted by COVID-19 because of their industry sector, company resources, and scale of business. For example, 44% of revenues for Black-owned businesses derived from vulnerable sectors as compared to 22% for all businesses. And only 28% of scaled Latino-owned businesses have had a majority of employees that can work from home as compared to 44% of white-owned businesses. The disparities are clear. These factors demonstrate the minority-owned businesses are greater disadvantage and less likely to endure the pandemic due to discriminatory systems in place that hamper their success and their factors outside of their control. By allowing these businesses to benefit from the program, the bill helps to remedy those past systems and makes it more likely that they will survive the pandemic's economic consequences. This bill helps those businesses and more, smaller companies with few employees, businesses located in economically distressed areas, and businesses for which loans and access to capital has been out of reach. By passing this bill today, we aim to help all of them. That is why, members, today I ask you for an aye vote on this bill, and I thank you for your grace in allowing me a third reading speech. Thank you.
Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What Representative Herod was discussing was a certain aspect of the bill, $4 million. I really don't want to talk about that aspect that much, because when we talk about stats, she's forgotten more about this topic than I'll probably ever know. But one thing about stats, when you sit up here and you say, should I say something or shouldn't I say something? But I'll add a stat to this. If any, we hear different things about picking certain groups getting money over other groups. But if we want to talk about certain stats, I look at the extra $4 million as an opportunity for minorities to obtain a little bit extra capital. 4 million out of 64 counties. I think if anybody needs to be offended, they should be offended that it's so little. But if we want to talk about certain facts, if you look at programs that do offer incentives to certain groups, at the end of the day, it seldom really gets to them. So I think this $4 million is an opportunity, but if you look at stats, if you're worried about a certain group getting money that another group is not getting, let's bring back the facts at the end of this bill. I can almost guarantee minorities will get less than their population of Colorado. So don't be fooled. Don't think that a minority group is going to get 50% more than someone else. When it boils down, at the end of the day, when the dollars hit people's hands, the minority groups get less than their population on these types of issues. So that's just the trend. Nobody's, and I hate talking about race, but in the day, Caucasian white people are going to get the huge lion's share. That just happens. So whether you like it or not, those are the facts. So, I was on a radio show the other day about this. Let's not act like certain minority groups don't pay taxes or make jobs, okay? So we're talking about $4 million throughout 64 counties. I think $4 million throughout 64 counties is more the insult. So I think it's very little. So I'm just giving my thought on that. And this whole deal about pushing money towards one end to away from another area, let's get realistic about what we do here. We get a lump sum of money. Look at the JBC. Look at appropriations. We get a lump sum of money through taxes, and we decide where it goes. Somebody gets it, somebody doesn't. So we're always picking an area where money goes, an area where it doesn't. There's never going to be situations where every single person gets a dollar. And do you want it to be that way? Do you want this bill designed to give money to Amazon, to Home Depot, to Walmart? Do you want a shotgun approach where we're giving money to where we're giving aid to people who don't deserve it? And don't make any, we're not up here giving money to, like, I'm half Hispanic. I'm not giving up here because I like Hispanics. We're giving money that's facts-based. It's facts-based to the people in need. So let's not stand up here and say, we want to give money to the people in need. So let's do the research, see the top people in need, but if we don't like the answers, we change our mind. Give it to the people in need, whether you like it or not. If you're going to stick to that belief, stick to it. If you're the type of politician that says, listen, these businesses, the businesses that we focus on, and I'm talking about the other 34 million in this, or 33 million in this package. If you're the type of person that says, I think businesses should keep more of their taxes, but when it's time to give them back some of their revenue, you say no. So these businesses have lined our pockets with tax revenue, hundreds of millions to billions for decades. And now they need help. And we don't want to throw a few crumbs back at them. We act like sometimes this is our money. It's their money that they brought into us. They're paying for all these nice roads, these nice bridges, this national security, this police service. We're not paying for it. These businesses paid for it. Historically. Now, when they're on one knee, when they're down on their luck, we act like it's not their money. They're the ones paying our salary. So I think that is my say. That's why I'm on this bill. Is because any chance I get to return some pennies out of the hundreds of millions to billions they give to us, I'm going to take the opportunity to do it. And I don't care if they're black, white, Democrat, Republican. These are job makers, and these are the people who sign the front of the check, and they're the ones paying for everything. So with that said, I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sandridge. Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 1? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 1. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote? Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sirota votes yes. Representative Hooton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Hooton votes yes. Representative Amable, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Amable votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Absolutely.
Representative Judah votes yes. I'm not sure we're allowed to use signs during third reading. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do we vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Lontine, how do we vote?
Yes.
Representative Lontine votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Please close the machine. With 47 aye votes, 16 no votes, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 1 passes. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Bill 2. Oh yeah, sorry. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors, McLaughlin, Titone, Kipp, Michelson, Janae, Jackson, Hooten, Sirota, Mobley, McCormick, Doherty, Cutter, Lontine, Burnett, Judah. All right. I didn't see a hand raised. Please close the machine. McCormick, I believe I got you. McCormick? Great, you're added. Ricks? Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Bill 2.
Senate Bill 21002 by Senators Winter and Gonzalez, also Representative Harrod, concerning modification of the limitations on certain debt collection actions enacted in Senate Bill 20-211.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Bill 2 on third reading and final passage.
You have heard the motion. Is there discussion? Seeing none. The motion before us is the passage of Senate Bill 2 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Hooten, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Hooten votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sirota votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, Representative Mobley, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Mobley votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Lontine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lontine votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Yes. Representative Gray votes yes. Representative Sandridge. Please close the machine. With 44 ayes, 20 noes, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 2 is passed. Co-sponsors. Representative Kipp, Representative Michelson Janae, Representative Jackson, Representative Titone, Representative Hooten, Representative Sirota, Representative Mobley, Representative McCormick, Representative Cutter, Representative Burnett, Representative Gray. Please.
Mr. Speaker,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Speaker?
Yep. Representative Lontine.
Thank you.
Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 3.
Senate Bill 21-003 by Senators Fields and Holbert, also Representatives Ortiz and Larson, concerning the recreation and reenactment with amendments of the Occupational Therapy Practice Act and in connection therewith reestablishing the licensing functions of the Director of Division of Professions and Occupations in the Department of Regulatory Agencies regarding occupational therapists and occupational therapy assistants.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for third reading, final passage of Senate Bill 3 again.
That's close to a proper motion. The motion before us is the passage of Senate Bill 3 on third reading and final passage. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Tatone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Tatone votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Hooton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Hooton votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sirota votes yes. Representative Amable, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Amable votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Lantine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lantine votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Representative Gray votes yes. Please close the machine. Looks like Representative Ortiz got a lot of people voting no at first. Congratulations on your first bill. With 56 ayes, 8 noes, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 3 is passed. Co-sponsors. Representative Gray, Representative McLaughlin, Representative Tatone, Representative Kipp, Representative Michelson-Janae, Representative Jackson, Representative Hooton, Representative Cutter, Representative Doherty, Representative Lantine, Representative Burnett. Thank you. That brings us to the end. Please close the machine. That brings us to the end of the third reading calendar, and if you're following along on your calendar, to consideration of resolutions. Madam Majority Leader. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of House resolutions.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to move out of order to hear House Resolution 1004.
Great. You have heard the motion to proceed out of order for immediate consideration of House Resolution 1004. Is there any objection? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Resolution 1004.
House Resolution 21-10004 by Representatives Bacon and Exum concerning the commemoration of the birthday of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Black Caucus, I move H.R. 21-1004 and ask to be read at length.
It has been properly moved. Mr. Gregorio.
Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia on January 15, 1929. Graduated from Morehouse College with a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1948, graduated from Crozer Theological Seminary in 1951, and received a PhD from Boston University in 1955. And whereas Reverend Dr. King's faith, resiliency, and commitment to justice became known worldwide through his speeches, writings, and actions. And whereas Reverend Dr. King declared the moral responsibility to aid the oppressed did not stop at the edge of his street, town, or state. When he wrote, "I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And whereas Reverend Dr. King withstood attacks on his home and family, among numerous other threats and setbacks, standing firm in his conviction that although the arc of the moral universe is long, it bends towards justice. And whereas Reverend Dr. King led the Montgomery bus boycott, a 13th-month protest beginning in 1955 against the segregated city bus lines. And whereas the Montgomery bus boycott led to the integration of the Montgomery city bus system and is widely credited as the beginning of the civil rights movement in America. And whereas in 1957, Reverend Dr. King was elected president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization formed to provide leadership for the burgeoning civil rights movement. And whereas between 1957 and 1968, Reverend Dr. King spoke more than 2,500 times, wrote 5 books, as well as numerous articles, led protests, helped register African American voters, was arrested more than 20 times, was awarded 5 honorary degrees, was named Man of the Year by Time magazine, and became the symbolic leader of the African American community, as well as a world figure. And whereas on August 28, 1963, Reverend Dr. King directed the March on Washington, where more than 200,000 Americans gathered in the name of equality and civil rights, and which culminated in Reverend Dr. King's historic I Have a Dream speech. And whereas the leadership of Reverend Dr. King was instrumental in bringing about landmark legislation, such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibited segregation in public accommodations and facilities and banned discrimination based on race, color, or national origin, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which eliminated remaining legal barriers to voting for disenfranchised African American voters. And whereas in 1964, Reverend Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his tireless and selfless work in the pursuit of justice for African Americans and other oppressed people in America. And whereas Reverend Dr. King's 13 years of nonviolent leadership ended abruptly and tragically when on April 4th, 1968, he was assassinated while standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. And whereas Reverend Dr. King's life and work continue to echo in our lives as we strive to reach the lofty goal he set when he said, "Let us all hope that the dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away and the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities, and in some not-too-distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all their scintillating beauty." And whereas the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Colorado was championed by Representative William Webb, who sponsored the legislation creating the holiday, and on April 4th, 1985, Colorado Governor Dick Lamb signed the bill into law. And whereas Colorado's enactment of the holiday and the annual parade, emerging of the words march and parade, predated the federal holiday designation, and the first celebration in Colorado was on January 20th, 1986. And whereas Reverend Dr. King's birthday is a federal holiday in the United States and a state holiday in the state of Colorado, which is celebrated each year on the third Monday in January. And whereas on Monday, January 18th, 2021, we celebrate the 35th anniversary of Reverend Dr. King's holiday now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 73rd General Assembly of the State of Colorado that we, the members of the House of Representatives, hereby encourage, appreciate observances, ceremonies, and activities to commemorate the federal and state legal holiday honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. throughout all cities, towns, counties, school districts, and local governments within Colorado. Be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to President Donald Trump, Honorable Governor Jared Polis, the Congressional Black Caucus, the National Black Caucus of state legislatures, and the members of Colorado's congressional delegation, Senators Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper, and Representatives Diana DeGette, Joe Nagise, Lauren Boebert, Ken Buck, Doug Lamborn, Jason Crow, and Ed Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. Gregorio. Representative Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
I'm honored to stand here before all of you today in this house where we make laws, because I'm reminded of laws that impacted my family. My mother was not able to sit where she wanted to sit. She couldn't drink from certain water fountains, nor could she apply to go to certain schools. And so it was an incredible honor for me to not only be elected once to my local school board, but to represent House District 7, for where she could not have one seat, I now have 2. I also think about my mother in graduating from a segregated high school in Jackson, Mississippi. And that was 1970, which means that was only one generation ago. And like her, as she's still living, so were people who benefited from Jim Crow, as well as some of the people who may have made those laws are also still living. But as I stand in this House of Laws, I know what is possible for our community. For I, like many people from my mother's generation, am the first to be able to go to school with white children. And so I think about the road that it took for me to get here as a Black woman. And I've seen Black people continue to fight for the privilege to be seen as normal, for the privilege to not have to conform or be confined to a dominant culture. And so I think about this as I shop for Band-Aids when they're not in my color, or for women for our stockings in the color of nude. My mom used to say, "Who's nude?" I mean, we're not talking about nudeness here. But I also think about this when I decide what I'm gonna wear when I walk to the store or jog in my neighborhood. My mother had to say names like Emmett Till, and I have to continue to do so as we say the names of Breonna Taylor. But I know, in having met all of you, I'm inspired about what we can accomplish in the vision of Dr. King. I will say, though, that I am unapologetic about my Blackness. As Black people, we are the soul of the nation. We are the litmus test of what it is that we as a nation will tolerate when it comes to the treatment of human beings, when it comes to the determination of the value of life. We may be able to change our names and credentials, but we can't change our color. It is not something that we can put away. But the dream also means that one day we can pull ourselves together out of the nightmares because it is exhausting. So in this House of Laws, I put my faith in humanity in all of you. I know that we can build this dream together. I promise that I will work diligently to strengthen this state in this country, for it is mine. And even though it may seem like it doesn't love me, I love it, because the recipe that makes up my blood can be found nowhere else on this planet. But I also know that, as I am evidence, as the granddaughter of a farmer, he didn't raise cows, he raised hogs and corn, and the granddaughter of a man who never slept in the bed until he joined the Army, where he retired as a general. I know what is possible in just these short generations. So it's fitting that this holiday coincides with the beginning of our session. I commit to walk with all of you together out of the depths of our original sins and into the hopes of our original promise to be true to what we said on paper. And I believe us when we share our hopes and dreams. And I believe us when people tell us their pain, and I hope you believe me and not make me qualify it. But together we represent the collective consciousness of this state. And Dr. King may not have gotten there with us, but together we have all seen the mountaintop, and I look forward to walking side by side to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bacon. Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And remind me to go first before Representative Bacon speaks again.
I definitely will.
Very well done. Before I read a couple of quotes from Dr. King, I've shared this story a few times with you. I was a sophomore in high school when Dr. King was assassinated, and I gave a very difficult speech to my English class not too far after that. But I thought, what he fought for and died for, people in my generation would not have to face that type of discrimination. But that wasn't the case. In 1974, when I joined the Colorado Springs Fire Department, a few months after that, a white firefighter thought that, or made a statement that he didn't want to sleep in the same bed as blacks because he thought all blacks were dirty. A few months a few years later, that was 74. In 1984, when I got promoted to lieutenant, I was told I only got promoted because I was black. 2001, when I got promoted to captain, I was told I only got promoted because I was black. In 2006, when I got promoted to battalion chief, I was told I only got promoted because I was black. As a matter of fact, when I got promoted to battalion chief, my supervisor at the time, a black female, was demoted. So there was no gain there. So we have a long ways to go. But we can make it. Let me read a couple quotes, and then I'll step aside for others to make comments. Violence never brings permanent peace. It solves no social problem. It merely creates new and more complicated ones. Violence is impractical because it is a descending spiral ending in a destruction for all. It is immoral because it seeks to humiliate the opponent rather than win his understanding. It seeks to annihilate rather than convert. Violence is immoral because it thrives on hatred rather than love. It destroys community and makes brotherhood impossible. It leaves society a monologue rather than dialogue. Violence ends up defeating itself. It creates bitterness in the survivors and brutality in the destroyers. And the last thing I would say, many of you remember this quote. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Exum. Representative, and we have, I think, discussed with both sides about allowing some words to be said remotely from folks participating. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I've been sitting here quickly thinking about what I might want to share. You know, the things that Dr. King stood for and the issues of race and identity and justice and equity, in my own place in this world, I think about every single day. So I've told a lot of you, you know, some of my stories. You've just heard some stories from some of my colleagues. You know, my earliest memory of being different, I don't even know where we were, what state we were in, but I remember my mother and I going into a grocery store and being told that we were not allowed to be in there. And I remember being beaten with brooms and told that we had to leave. You know, growing up, my mother worked really hard to make sure that we got a good education. And for a time, working many jobs to put us into private schools. And I remember being told, just, you know, go to the library, look at the pretty pictures, because there is absolutely no way that you're ever going to pass the math test. And honestly, there have been words that have been spoken to me and actions that have been taken against me in that chamber because I'm Black. And so that, yeah, today, I mean, yesterday I spoke at a press conference about communities of color and environmental justice. Literally last night, my husband and I were watching the news, and a story came on about a Black man who was on his porch and was shot. And I told my husband, as I have done so many times. Please, sweetheart, can you fast forward through this, because my heart cannot bear the pain of watching another man be gunned down. And this is all true. Yesterday, I was talking to a girlfriend about my own personal future, what I want for myself in the long term. And I told her that I was working towards what's in the front of my mind is being able to afford to find a place where I can live in relative quiet, and I can look at the sun, and I can look at my beloved trees and hear the wind and feel safe and not persecuted. And I told her that I don't know where that's going to be. So when I think about the struggles of the civil rights movement and the man that we're honoring today, I mean, I think about Dr. King, I think about all of them. I've got pictures behind me. I've got Rosa Parks. I've got the Tuskegee Airmen, who we honor every year, Little Rock Nine. You know, when I think about, obviously, what we have experienced this year, the Black men and the Black women who've been gunned down, had ketamine shot in them, the activists who are fighting for Black Lives Matter. You know, I listen to my colleagues and I love them and I honor them, but I have to tell you, I'm tired. I'm like exhausted. And every year in this chamber, we pontificate about, you know, loving each other and about equity and about quality. And I just described to you a little bit of the timeline of my lifetime. And not much has changed. So I guess what I want to really say to you, I guess, is, I mean, I don't know, I still never give up hope. Every year I ask you, when we honor Dr. King, to learn and to grow and to treat people, which is what Dr. King wanted, with dignity and respect. All people, everybody. So I guess I'm going to ask you to do the same, to see me, okay? To see these tears, to see my pain. And because, especially if that's the only way you can come to understand me, because I know sometimes that's what it takes, is just that individual connection. And if you can see me, then help others see me, and help others see everybody in that building. There are so many beautiful, wonderful people in that building. We have a cacophony of diversity of people who are elected in that chamber and people who work to make sure that everybody in this state is able to prosper. Anyway, I don't know, if you see all of us, then maybe you will be moved enough to do your part and honor Dr. King and truly work towards justice. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. Madam Speaker Pro Tem Benavides and Representative in the Latino caucus.
I'll let him get there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. I have the honor of reading this statement on behalf of our Latino caucus, and other Latinos within the caucus are fine to join us on this. Members, we ask that you reflect that this year will mark the 53rd anniversary of the death of Martin Luther King. and the 36th anniversary of the parade that honors his legacy also reflect that the divisions in our nation are more pronounced now than they have been since the civil rights movements of the 50s and 60s. This past year, we experienced the largest mass uprisings for racial justice throughout this country, throughout our state, since that time. The current movement for racial justice, led by the Black Lives Matter organization, is a recognition that we have not eradicated the scourge of racism that has permeated through our lives and through our laws. The eldest son of Dr. King, Martin Luther King III, in an interview this past year, reflected that his father would have hoped that we would have resolved what he called the evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. But we haven't. But his father would have been pleased that the demonstrations, largely black, were often joined by whites. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, riots are the language of the unheard. And maybe with the loss of so many lives, and in particular, in just the 90 days that preceded those demonstrations, the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, that maybe we as a country were shocked with the understanding of the fears faced daily by Blacks and other people of color as they undertake the daily aspects of their life, going for a jog, sleeping in your own bed, or walking home from the store. Maybe we will hear those voices now. Martin Luther King III said that his belief is that there are more people of goodwill than there are evil people who harbor racist views. It's just that good people have been silent. He said that we have an institutional racism problem in this country, and we have been in denial. Members, let us not forget that the Reverend Martin Luther King did not die of old age. He did not pass on as some iconic elder leader. Martin Luther King was assassinated. He was only 39 years old. He was assassinated by a racist. Let the similarities start there with those young Black individuals that I named, but also including children like Tamir Rice. And right here in our own community, a young man named Elijah McClain. The Black Lives Matter movement is a stark reminder that our work is not done. Racism and unequal treatment has not been eradicated from our society. Let us be reminded that all of us, especially us as lawmakers, we have to keep these matters at the top of our minds as we do the people's work. Let us ensure that Dr. Martin Luther King's life and his death have meaning. This year, the suffering of so many has taken on increased visibility. It helped us recognize that there are huge disparities that still exist in our nation, in our state. The demonstrations this past year for racial justice was what Dr. Martin Luther King referred to as a confrontation with strength and dignity. a move past so-called respectable politics to a movement for the dignity of all, a movement that shouts at us and should shake us to our core. We ask that you consider that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, our dear and precious elder, continue to rest in power. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem and members of the Latino Caucus. Mr. Minority Leader McKean. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I made this plea last year during this same memorial. And I offer this plea again. We know that civil protest is something we do. We also know that in many cases, protests of the last 11 months have not been civil. We do not, and I do not, advocate violence of any form. When Black Lives Matter protests are peaceful, I raise my hand in support. When other movements and protests are peaceful, I raise my hand in support. When they turn violent and destructive, that's when I step back, and all Americans should step back and say, no, you've gone too far. Come back to the other side of the fence and stand with us. I want to talk about military service briefly and say how when I served in the military, as many have, we washed away our ethnicity. We washed away our racial identities, and we became brothers in arms and brothers and sisters in arms in service. We were Americans wearing the American flag on our left shoulder, and as we moved forth to defend the Constitution of the United States, we found in the most challenging places, in the most difficult places, in the worst places in the world, where Americans are truly hated at a level that you will never understand unless you've seen it and been there. And what we believe in is so hated, they'll do anything to make us go away and be irrelevant. That all these things were washed away. And Martin Luther King said something so profound, I can never forget it and will never forget it. Because this is the vision for America that I would like to see. And I think all of us in here will attest to this. In the words of Martin Luther King, I look to a day when people will be judged by the color of their skin. Not be judged by the color of their skin, but rather the quality of their character, or the content of their character. Think about what that means. It is so profound to me that we would all judge each other by who we are inside, not who we are outside. That is the most profound thing. And what that does is make us all Americans. We're all Americans. If we can get to that place, I know that the journey is not complete. But I will argue that we must all seek that place where in this country we stop the racial division. We stop dividing ourselves by color, by creed, by origin, and we say, ladies and gentlemen, we are all Americans first. We are citizens of this great experiment called the United States of America. And nobody looks at me or Representative Bacon or anybody else and tries to judge us by the veneer that is our skin. Because beneath that is something more important. It is our character and our spirit, given by God. I'll briefly close by saying we need to arrive at this place in history when this quote can be our truth. And I listened to a speech by Senator Rhonda Fields, and she talked about facts and truths. And she explained how there can be a difference and how she wants our truth to be this, and it should be this. This was last month, I believe. I believe it was in November. And I listened to that speech and I said, you know, part of that makes sense to me. As I listened to her, as I listened today to all of you. Our national journey continues, but I will tell you, we must move to a place where we promote all of us to be a member of the human race. We are humans all together. When you ask me my ethnicity or my race, I check other. I even write where there's a point in there, I say, you know, it's really not your business to judge me, because what we're doing every time we fill that out and talk about that, we don't go to the place that Martin Luther King speaks of, that I look to a day when people will be not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I would like to see a survey that says, describe your character. I'd be more than happy to fill that out. God-fearing, Christian, country boy who loves his country more than anything, because I've been to and lived in other countries that are so far removed from what we are and makes this country so special. And to this day, I would give my life for this country right here, right now. Right now. Because it means more to me than anything. My father, who was a naturalized citizen from the country of Spain, hung something on his wall, and many of you have heard me say this. The most valuable thing in his life, albeit an accomplished corporate executive, was his naturalization certificate to be a citizen of the United States of America. My Spanish family was not happy with him because he shunned his heritage. Why did he do that? Because he understood what it meant to be an American, a United States citizen. He understood what that meant and the opportunities that offered. Regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your race, I see all of you as Coloradoans and Americans, and I will not change my position. Please help me suppress the racial division that occurs in this country. Please help me take a journey that takes us to Martin Luther King's place, where we are all judged by our character and who we are, and not by what color we are. I use an automobile example. I don't want to be judged by the color of my pickup. I want to be judged by what's under the hood. What's under the hood of this pickup? And where can I go? And what can I pull? And what can I do for humanity? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, esteemed colleagues. And I do continue to honor and revere Martin Luther King and his message.
Representative Ricks online.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Madam Majority Leader and Mr. Minority Leader, for allowing us to speak remotely. To my esteemed colleagues, I rise today during my first ever speech on the floor of the People's House to commemorate the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King and his contemporaries, people like the late John Lewis and the great Rosa Parks, led a movement without which a woman like me may not have ended up in a place like this. As a Black woman and the first African immigrant to serve here under the Golden Dome, I know that my story embodies the change that Dr. King fought so hard to bring about. During my time here at the legislature, I hope to do these civil rights heroes proud. The best way I can think to honor Martin Luther King is to continue to work toward the vision he proposed of a more equitable and more just America. In a sermon delivered in 1956, Dr. King discussed the concept of peace and how it is so often misunderstood. He preached that although many would understand peace to be merely the absence of some negative force like war, tensions, or confusion, it was in fact the presence of a positive force, a force like justice or goodwill. Mr. Speaker, I am eager to get my work in this building truly started. eager to work to make our state better every day, eager to honor heroes like Martin Luther King by fighting not only to drive out the negative forces that hold our communities back, but to fight to strengthen the cause of justice in our state so that every Colorado family, regardless of color, creed, income level, zip code, and immigration status, can truly have peace. I close with the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. We are now faced with the facts that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Rick. Representative Judah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
Members of this House, I am honored to speak for the first time remotely in the well regarding the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As a Palestinian, as a practicing Muslim, and as a member of the Black Caucus, there is a sad and unfortunate truth about kinship and oppression. And the truths that that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke to, that he upheld, paved the way for people like myself and other members of the Black Caucus to make history, to say we have the right to participate. Dr. King once said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Last week, we saw that darkness in our nation's capital, but we also saw that same light shine through as we saw the legacy of Dr. King live on through the elections in Georgia. As I sit in the hallowed halls of our own temple to democracy, our state capitol, I'm reminded of a verse in the Holy Quran. And it says, "I created you into nations and tribes that ye may know one another, not that ye may despise one another." That light that Dr. King speaks of is, in fact, knowing one another, loving each other's tribes. I want to take a moment to stand in solidarity with the Black Caucus and thank them for standing in solidarity with this kinship around oppression. I also want to say to everyone watching that I vow to be an ally and stand in solidarity with the Black community and fight to bend the arc of justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Judah. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
So members, so I was driving in today, I was considering what I would say to remark this occasion. I always try to come up with something because Martin Luther King is undeniably one of the most important figures, certainly in contemporary American history, and I would argue the history of Western civilization. Unfortunately, I was bailed out because I heard two great things said today by two different members from two different parties. The first thing I'd actually like to point out is I was listening to newly elected Representative Bacon and her recount her story of her mother and the injustices that were served upon her, talking about graduating from a segregated high school in Jackson, Mississippi in 1970, I believe is what you said. But then I thought, and I haven't had the chance to talk to Representative Bacon. I don't know if her mother's still with us or not, but I thought, how proud that girl in 1970 graduating from that school must be today or 3 days ago to see how far her daughter went and how it was probably incomprehensible at that point to think that her child would be here elected, serving as an elected official in the state of Colorado. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. You know, we look, and we undoubtedly have, and again, I think this echoes the comments I made last year, we will never be complete in our pursuit of justice and perfection in this country. But let's just take a moment and look back and be proud of the progress that we've made from 1970 to today, and hope that the next 50 years bring a same measure, if not more, of progress from where we are now. It really was moving to hear that, and thank you for sharing that with us. The other words that were delivered today that I think were so important and really touched me were the words of Dr. Martin Luther King delivered by our minority leader through this morning's prayer. And I do want to repeat just a brief section of it, because this is something that I live every day, and when we say the prayer, I always privately ask for wisdom, strength, and humility, because those are the three things that I think are so important to this job. And, you know, I can tell you, that's what I always pray for whenever I pray. But in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, we all too often live by our own selfish impulses rather than by the life of sacrificial love as revealed by Christ. We often give in order to receive. We love our friends and hate our enemies. We go the first mile but dare not travel the second, and we forgive but dare not forget. And I want us all to reflect on those words in all sincerity, because in politics, unfortunately, there's a lot of cynicism. And I have seen too often words spoken at this dais, in the press, in speeches, from members of both parties, paying superficial lip service to these words, but their meaning is dead in their mouths before it even leaves their lips. This is hard. What Dr. King and what Christ asked us to do, it is hard to look at somebody that you disagree with, somebody who has wronged you, and to actually take the time to try to understand where they're coming from. I fail at it all the time. We all do. But we all should think internally. Don't just run with the courage of your convictions. It is so easy in politics to only listen to the people who love you and to just shut out the other side and say, oh, they're uneducated. Oh, they're ignorant. Oh, they're racist. There's a million labels you can throw on them that you just throw away where they're coming from. That's the easy thing. But try, and we'll all fail at it for the rest of our lives. I can guarantee you that. But try. The next time that somebody who you disagree with, somebody who you look at and think, I just don't even understand what planet they are from, rather than judging them, rather than, proclaiming your own self-righteous dignity and looking down on them, try to understand where they're coming from. Understand what made them think that way, say that thing. What have I done to give them the wrong perception of what my meaning was? And try to carry that humility in your hearts. Because, the message of Dr. King and the message of Christ, there's so many great things. I became a Christian later in life, and I approached it very academically, and there's so many good things that never get talked about in the media and frankly never get preached at pulpits, that are just such valuable lessons and speak to the human condition. And Dr. King hit it on the head. And I just hope today, when we all leave this building, and as we reflect over the next month, that we take more time to be more humble, to see things from another perspective. And when we come back, that we have a genuine appreciation for the other side and a genuine desire to heal our nation and to move forward and to make the next 50 years just as great and just as much progress as we did from the last 50 years from when Representative Bacon's mother graduated from high school. Thank you.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, in the last 4 years that I've served in this chamber, I've never come down to speak on this resolution, and I've always felt the pull, but at the same time I felt hesitation because I don't want to make this about me, and I don't want to take away from some of these moving stories that I hear from some of my other colleagues. And over the last 2 years, I had the privilege of sitting next to Representative Janet Buckner, who gave me permission to refer to this story. And I just shared with her that I was wrestling with this, and I didn't know how I could best be an ally, how I could best show my support, whether I should step back or whether I should step forward and have something to say. And Representative Buckner was very understanding of my struggle, as all of you who know her know that she would be. But she also did encourage me, find your voice, find something that you have to say that contributes to this conversation. And so I have one small thing that I would like to add. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood and a predominantly white high school. In my graduating class of about 250 people, we had 2 black students and maybe about a dozen Latino students. And, you know, none of them were in my close circle of friends. And while we learned history, we learned the history of slavery, and we learned the history of Jim Crow, and we certainly learned about Dr. King. There was much we did not learn. We did not learn about redlining. We did not learn about the long-term impacts of wealth disparities and wealth accumulation over time. We didn't learn about how certain kinds of voting rights laws disproportionately impact communities of color. And so it would be easy to draw the conclusion as a student in my graduating class that racism was over, that the problem was solved. When I went to college in CU Boulder, I can't say that my education expanded too much at that point because the lack of diversity was there as well. And I studied at the engineering school where, once again, almost every kid in all of my classes was white. And because of the lack of the liberal arts component to my education in engineering, I didn't have classes that exposed me to that. Most of my learning about this topic has happened since I have been in this chamber, in this legislature. And I've gotten to know some of the people I have gotten to know. And it has been quite a learning experience. And I don't want to lead on that I have learned all there is to learn. This is an ongoing process for me, and I have learned a few things, but I recognize that I have much to learn. And I have to ask myself the hard questions every day when I run a bill that feels like a good idea to me. Am I thinking through how this impacts all the different communities of Colorado? Because I don't just represent my district, I'm a representative of the whole state. And even now I do represent a district that is predominantly white. And when I go out knocking on doors, it is rare that I meet a person of color at the doors. And yet, it is on me to do the work, to do the learning, to make sure that I can be a good representative for the whole state and try to lift up all the people of our whole state. Now, I've heard some speak today to the virtues of colorblindness, and that is an understandable ideal, and yet at the same time, our policies cannot be colorblind because colorblind policies do not account for the history. They do not account for the historical disparities, the wealth differentials, the impacts of redlining, the impacts of voting right laws. We must have proactive policies, and this must be part of every conversation we have in this chamber. And so while I'd like to think that I am here doing work for justice, I'd like to think that I am doing good work that contributes to this challenge, it is still something that I realize I will always fall short on and that I must make sure is part of my life and the choices I make. I'd like to end with something that gave me some solace last Wednesday when I went looking for some inspiration and something to make me feel just a little bit better about what's going on in our country. Again, quoting Dr. King. As you press on for justice, be sure to move with dignity and discipline, using only the weapon of love. Let no man pull you so low as to hate him. Always avoid violence. If you succumb to the temptation of using violence in your struggle, unborn generations will be the recipients of a long and desolate night of bitterness. and your chief legacy to the future will be an endless reign of meaningless chaos. This is an inspiration for all of us, so that when we get up and fight every day, that we can try to lift up every single person in our state and make life better for every Coloradan. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kennedy. Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, members, fundamentally, when we come down here annually to honor Dr. King, we do so because of his work in the service of justice and equality. And I think we need to think about justice and equality in each of our own actions every day. And when we hear stories like Rep. Bacon has shared about her family's past, or Rep. Jackson has shared, or Rep. Exum has shared, that is injustice and inequality from the heart of another. And as all three of you have walked, I know that every other member of the Black Caucus here has walked, and every member of the Latino Caucus has walked, and every single person of color in this country has had to walk that kind of path of injustice and equality at some point in experiencing the actions of other people. And all I can say is I'm sorry, and the world owes you better. But as people who are here in the place where laws are made, and as lawmakers with that privilege, I think we also need to look at the role not just of individual actions, but of the law itself in the cause of justice and equality, and in the presence or absence of it in our world over time. And in doing so, as my colleague from Lakewood alluded to, I think we need to have the long view of the role of the law. And I wanted to share some of what I've been thinking about this week. You know, the history of inequality in this country goes back to even before our Constitution, but it is certainly rooted in that Constitution. Even that document, which was in so many ways aspirational, was also so flawed with those noxious words, 3/5 of all other persons. It goes back that far. In 1866, one of the first of the Civil Rights Acts following the Civil War had to simply affirm the right to contract, that basic building block of business, shall not be abridged. Depending on when your ancestors got here to this country and the color of their skin, they may never have had to doubt that. But not until 1866 was that basic right first put into law. So when we debate a bill like we debated earlier this morning, and Rep. Sandridge and Rep. Harrod, I appreciate your work on that legislation, when we talk about remedying inequity in the business community, it goes back at least that far. Because not everybody had equal access to even contract, to establish business, to build wealth, equally far back in time. 1896, the highest court of our land, in one of its more shameful moments, upheld the notion of separate but equal. That's Plessy v. Ferguson. There followed decades of lawlessness, worked by the Klan, worked by Jim Crow, until only in 1954 did our High Court finally recognize that any kind of legally enforced separateness will never be equal. That was Brown v. Board. Sounds like it took a while for that to actually come into place in parts of our country. In 1948, the President of the United States, President Truman at the time, finally desegregated the military in recognition of the fact that all people, Black people, Hispanic Americans, helped defeat fascism, and maybe finally ought to be entitled to some recognition of equality in our armed services. Only in 1948 did the U.S. Supreme Court invalidate racially restrictive covenants, Shelley v. Kramer. And then we come to the legislation that the work of Dr. King is most known for directly impacting, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, whose Title VII started to set forth some protections against discrimination in employment. I think we have to tie that back to conversations about business too, because if you can't work to the limit of your capacity, of your gifts, then you are not building wealth and income. It took until 1965 for the Voting Rights Act to end some of the more noxious practices that had operated against people of color in parts of the country. and to make good, or to start to make good, on something that our law has long recognized, that voting is the right that secures all other rights. That if you cannot participate equally in voting and elections and choosing your representatives and your elected leaders, then your ability to advocate for other rights is thereby abridged. And in 1968, I believe it was 1 week to the day after Dr. King was assassinated, the Fair Housing Act, which set forth greater protections against discrimination in housing, that most basic building block of life for all of us. Where do we go and sleep at night? So decades ago, there started to be a lot of progress as finally society caught up to some of its history. And sadly, I deeply believe that the arc does bend toward justice, but we have to acknowledge that there have been some steps back over time. In 2013, the Supreme Court took a big bite out of the Voting Rights Act and made it harder to prevent certain practices from coming into law that have a discriminatory impact. As recently as last spring, actually about 2 weeks after we went on adjournment out of here due to COVID, there was another decision out of the Supreme Court that made it harder to bring a civil rights action under Section 1981. Even now, even in 2020, that recently. So I think my point in reciting some of this history, members, is that in the work, in the cause, in the quest, in the calling of equality and justice, the law has at times stood in the way, and sometimes the law has been late in coming into the right place. So in our work here, we have to make sure that in recognition of this history, the law is at least part of the solution, that the law can provide at least a partial remedy for the wrongs that the law has done in the past. Again, I do believe that the arc bends toward justice, but it doesn't do that by itself. It bends because people have worked and toiled and in some cases bled and lost their lives to bend it. And we honor that legacy today, and we are in a rare position, being who we are here in this room, to actually keep bending it by what we do, by the laws that we pass. So let's put our minds and our hearts and our shoulders and our legislative efforts to that end. I believe that is how we honor Dr. King. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Weissman. Representative Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. For me, there is no greater calling than service to others. And we're here to honor the life and service paid in the ultimate sacrifice by Dr. King. At the heart of it, it is a struggle and fight to ensure those rights and ideals outlined in the Constitution apply to all, regardless of gender, faith, orientation, color of your skin. Military service and an oath to that document, being willing to lay your life down, is a unique representation of that service. When that first mortar round hits your base, or the first time that you're shot at, or when your helicopter goes down, in that moment, you do not care about the gender, the race, or faith of the person coming to get you, to save your life. But I urge you all, let's not act like our differences are washed away. They're set aside to be true. And I am proud of my service and the diversity of the men and women that I serve with, that I still call brother and sister. But let's face reality, those differences are not completely washed away. And it's demonstrated by the fact that women that wear that uniform have to deal with greater rates of harassment and sexual assault. And it's demonstrated by the fact that although in our ranks, in the Air Force, in the Army, and in the Navy, we have more women of color than even in the civilian workforce, as you get higher in the ranks, it gets less diverse. No, the differences aren't washed away, and it's important that we do not say that, because I think it discredits the divide and struggles that we are still dealing with at home. And I'll get very personal. When you pay a sacrifice, either with your life or with your body, in an oath to that Constitution, and you come home to a nation that over 4 years gets further divided, it hurts. It's a very unique pain. When you see a video, I think the one that hit me the most, they all hit me, but the one that hit me the most was seeing Ahmaud Arbery. Because as a leg walker, there was nothing I enjoyed more than running. And I've seen that scene where someone is fighting for their life and treated less than human, but in combat in Afghanistan. And to see that at home, here, we fight over there so we don't have to see that and deal with that here. It hurt. So please, let's recognize the pain and experiences that our peers here in this chamber and that those that live in our communities are still living every day. Let's recognize those differences, let's celebrate those differences, and let's be resolved to love each other anyways, because at the heart of it, that's what happens in service. You love each other anyways. So please, let's do that at home.
Thank you, Representative Ortiz. Representative Beasley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. True honor to serve with you, sir.
Honored to serve with you.
Thank you. Friends, today is a real special day that I appreciate deeply, and I want to extend, for the first time that it occurs to me to do that, a real welcome to the new members. I'm just entering my second term, third year myself, and have developed some wonderful friendships here across the whole floor here. And you will as well. And I look forward to getting to know the newer members. I love seeing the new names up on the wall, even though I got bumped from number 2 to number 4. Sad. Gives me a little bit more time to get in for roll call, I suppose. But you will get to know people, and you'll get to know them well, and you'll get to love them as I do. And I want to tell you that I love those most different from me because of how I grew up, and I want to share that a little bit. We as Americans tend to be very critical of ourselves. But indeed, this nation is a unique and fantastic place. So a lot happened when I was 13 years old. When I was 13, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and this was 5 years after John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and then just 2 months after Martin Luther King was assassinated, John F. Kennedy's brother, Senator Robert Kennedy, was assassinated. It was a dark time. I'm 13 years old, and I'm seeing this, and it was a depressing thing. I'm thinking, this is how people resolve differences. It was just awful. Had me kind of generally depressed as a 13-year-old. But that was the time, while I was still 13, that my dad began taking the rest of the family with him on international travel. So my dad is still with us today, which I appreciate. He's 89 years old, not as big as he was at the time. My mom with us as well. But my dad's a big construction guy, 6'3", 6'4", over 300 pounds, a big, powerful man. And he had the confidence of a powerful man. So when he traveled to Iraq and Iran, Saudi, he stayed in people's homes more than he stayed in hotels, because they would see this big man coming in and they go, "You will stay in my house." And he'd go, "Great." He was used to immersing himself into the other folks' cultures, and that's how we raised us 4 kids. So when we moved to Puerto Rico when I was 13 years old, we didn't move into a gringo compound. We moved into a place that was 3 miles away from the next English-speaking family. We did not have a telephone the entire time we lived there. And then even during school season, school years, school times, my brother and I attended an all-boys boarding school. So on Sunday evenings, Dad would drop us off and pick us up 5 days later throughout the school year. But it was in this international travel, and especially there, that I learned my love for this nation by comparison. And I know a lot of you have the same experience. You love the United States because you lived away from it for a time and you were appreciating the uniqueness, the wonderfulness, the wonderful founding principles of this nation. So it was in Puerto Rico that one of my teachers at Colegio San Antonio Abad challenged me to go read the founding document of the United States, and that's when I read those words that Martin Luther King would quote of us all being created equally and endowed by that Creator with these certain unalienable rights, and among those, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And then, as a young adult, I went to work for that same big energy construction company that my dad worked for 30 years, and I took an assignment to South Africa. Nelson Mandela was still in prison at the time, but yet again, I'm immersed in a whole nother culture that initially is a little disturbing, but then as you're getting to know these people, they're fascinating and wonderful. And I've come to love that difference. I love that difference. I'll surround myself in my work, in my associations with people that are very different from me, because they're a lot more interesting than I am to me. But even in that place in South Africa, they talked of and looked up to the United States of America, and I'll give you one good reason why. I saw everywhere I went in public areas 6 bathrooms, 2 for whites, 2 for blacks, man and women whites, man and women black, and man and women colored, which was colored was anything in between black and white. If you were from India or you were from Mexico, that was your bathroom. It was weird. I saw what we had hearkened to many moons ago in the United States of water fountains that actually said whites only, and a public park that said whites only. It was weird. And that's why they themselves said, God, I wished I lived in the United States of America. Yet again, I'm seeing that the United States, while we certainly have our issues, and we're growing faster and getting better all the time, I'd like to think, the United States is a phenomenal place. It's a special, wonderful nation. And we've got the potential for being even better, even greater as we learn to know each other, get to know each other, and to love each other all the more. You know, I've been in the same Bible study every Tuesday morning for about 9 years. Dr. Martin Luther King came up in conversation this past Tuesday from one of my pals there named Chuck. And he was talking about Micah 6:8, which I believe Tony Exum has recently quoted, to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with God. And then Chuck said, and by the way, Martin Luther King spoke on that topic, but in his words, and his words were this: power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. So, fellow members of the great House of Representatives in Colorado, we are given a phenomenal opportunity of power, and all we got to do is add that love. I love you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Beasley. Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you, Representative McCluskey.
I come before you with great humility, ask for your grace as I try to speak my words about what Monday means to me, what my experiences have been, and what my efforts are to grow in my allyship to you as my colleagues, particularly those of color, those of difference, those with lived experiences that I can never, ever understand in the way that I wish I could. I want to speak about the importance of Dr. King to me, my family, and my community through the lens of what I have experienced in Colorado's high country. When it comes to our ski resorts, the importance of winter and spring holidays are lost in the feet of white snow that we welcome every winter. Our workforce is 24/7 in operating those resorts and making sure that tourism thrives in the state of Colorado. And it is hard to take a moment on Christmas or Easter, on President's Day or MLK Day, and recognize the import of those moments, of those people, of those special times that we value as a community, a state, and a nation. Years ago, our schools in Summit County, as a gesture to support working families, but more importantly, in a way to raise up Dr. King's legacy, chose to make MLK Day a day of learning, a day of social justice, a day of community service, a day of engagement, a day where children could learn of his tremendous vision, dream, his gifts to all of us. 15 years ago, in my work with Summit School District, as a feebly equipped white woman, I was charged with the task of raising the cultural proficiency of our educators, both our teachers, our bus drivers, our secretaries, our volunteers. And I will tell you, while I made that job the most important part of my work, I certainly could not do it with the same level, the same understanding that so many people of color could have done. And today, I don't think anything could be more important to all of us than the quality of our public education system in combating the very issues that Dr. King fought so fiercely against. Our institutions are biased and prejudiced and racist. Far too much of our curriculum in our schools fails to represent the views, the perspectives of people of color, people who've been marginalized, people whose stories have never been told. And far too many of our teachers are not the color of the students they stand before to teach. I believe the greatest gift that we can give ourselves and our future, the way that we will protect our democracy, our peace, is by strengthening the quality and the experience of public education in our state and nation. In the words of Dr. King, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education. Rarely do we find men who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. Those are certainly potent words in this moment and time. I will say it again. I come before you with humility. I want to commend the voices of Representative Bacon and Representative Exum. I want to thank those who have spoken today from their lived experiences, and I want to ask you to help me. Representative Kennedy, I could have written the words you said today because I too have never come to the well to speak today, fearing not only that I would fail to do justice and honor to Dr. King's legacy, but also fail to honor those of you in this room who understand what I do not. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for joining me in that commitment to public education, to helping make sure that the next generation learns and understands in deep and real ways how to value, understand, and accept difference, that our children can be raised in love, that our schools can ensure that the future of this great nation continues for years and generations to come, not on the backs of some, but in the hearts of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCluskey. Representative Carver. Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you, Representative Soper.
I rise today to honor Dr. Martin Luther King, but more importantly, what he fought for, or fought against, I should say, injustice. The fabric of who we are is woven by our experiences. So today I'd like to share a few experiences, but I first would like to tell you what I won't talk about. I won't talk about the fact that 2 years ago a reporter asked my wife to show him her papers as to her legal status in this country. I won't talk about how a year ago I was in a grocery store with my brother and sister-in-law. They speak Spanish, and a lady came up to them and said, "This is America. Speak English or get out of here." I won't talk about being with my cousin, who's an immigrant, or her father was an immigrant from Nigeria, so she's part black, and watching people cross the sidewalk. I won't talk about that. Instead, what I will talk about is an experience from college. And this experience came to mind, it comes to mind from time to time, but before Christmas, my wife and I took a trip to Arkansas to visit my brother and his family. My sister-in-law is an immigrant from Mexico. My wife is an immigrant from Taiwan. My family resembles the United Nations, and I'm very proud of that. We not only have differences in our skin color, we have differences in our religious beliefs. We're Seventh-day Adventists. I have cousins who belong to Church of the Firstborn, some who are Mormons, some who are Catholics. We have robust discussions in our family, as politics is also part of that diverse conversation. And as we were on our way to Arkansas, we spent the night in Topeka, Kansas. And as we got up early the next morning, I saw a sign that said, it had an arrow, and it said, school district office that way. And as a student of the law, I was reminded by the fact that it was in Kansas, Topeka, Kansas, where Brown versus the Board of Education took place. Being a bit of a junkie for the law, I should say, I pulled up on my phone the case, and I read it again. And a key phrase from that case, separate educational facilities are inherently unequal and therefore violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. That was decided in 1954, a 9-0 decision by the United States Supreme Court. However, states weren't fast to implement this. So we had another Supreme Court case, Brown 2, that basically was the directive to the states to hurry up and implement Brown 1. And then we had the Little Rock 9. I had the opportunity one day when, I was attending church in Alexandria, Virginia. It was kind of interesting. There was about 300 people in the audience. And one man talked about how one of the Little Rock Nine had been a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which I'm a member of. And about how he was not going to back out from being one of those first nine, because from having been a member of a religious group that had also been discriminated against, and then being African American on top of that, he felt he had a thick enough skin to stand up to anyone. You do realize the Little Rock Nine was originally the Little Rock 300, so there were not very many people strong enough with enough courage and conviction to go ahead and have the military escort them to school. But as I left church that day, the pastor said to me, "It's Matt, right?" And I hadn't been to Alexandria probably for a year in between. And I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" And he looks around and he said, "Well, it's not that hard. You see, I was the only Caucasian in an African American church." But he remembered my name. Back to the story that I wanted to tell you from college. I ran for student trustee, and the office of student trustee is actually in state statute, believe it or not. I fought a vigorous campaign. I had 2,154 votes. Unfortunately, my opponent also had 2,154 votes. My opponent was a 6'4" lineman on our football team, African American. An exact tie. Well, what do you do in an exact tie? All of us have been in competitive elections or we wouldn't be in these seats. Tim Foster, president of Mesa State College at that time, they've since changed it probably because of my impact. But he called us into his office and he said, "Guys, we have two decisions. There's either going to be a winner and a loser, or there's going to be a winner." We both looked at him kind of funny, and he said he believed there was a way that both of us could be student trustee, as there was a clear intent by the voters of the university that both of us represent them, that they did not want a black student trustee or a white student trustee. They wanted both of us representing them as their student trustee. But because it's in state statute, the office, it required a legal opinion from then Attorney General John Suthers, who said this is a novel question and one that he had never been asked before. He went on to write that because the position is more advisory and not so much about voting on policy, that he saw no reason why the intent of the voters could not be upheld, because after all, if it's an exact tie, there was something to be said for that. Now remember, we had just fought a vigorous campaign against each other, but we started out sharing the office. We had physical space to share. We also had a seat at the table to share. We went from being political opponents to being good friends, so much so that Reggie invited me to his wedding. I was the only non-African American at his wedding, and I feel very, very honored to be in that position. I can tell you that his struggles were felt whether it was in college or after college. I don't need to tell you what those were. But what I can tell you is that when we were there, he said to me, "Matt, I just have one request. We don't get Martin Luther King Jr. Day off. I would really like to fight to convince the Board of Trustees to make that a school holiday." We did, and we were successful. He graduated a year before me, and I realized we weren't successful. We were successful in the policy change, but we weren't successful. Because what I saw was the first year that students could take Martin Luther King Jr. Day off, they went skiing. This time of year, January 15th, it happens to be the best ski season here in Colorado. So you don't really think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., at least if you're a college student. I'd like to think that the rest of us are here. So I decided we needed to do something a bit more. I called Reggie, I said, I need you to come back. We need to make this a celebration of Dr. King. So we started reading, I Had a Dream speech my last year in college on Martin Luther King Day. And that's a tradition that continues on to this day, that it's now a celebration like we're doing right here on the House floor today. And I would just like to highlight the fact, in conclusion, we can talk a lot about where we've been, the difficulties, the struggles. But we also need to look to the fact that we, as individuals, can change the future. The future is not carved in stone. When we think of humanitarianism, I think of the Jewish tradition called tikkun olam, meaning repairing the world. It's the idea that we're all...
You have 1 minute, Representative Soper.
Thank you. That we're all called upon to repair the world, even though we know in advance we will not complete the job. None of us in this room will complete the job. I call on you, though, to strive to do your best to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Soper. Remotely, Representative Michelson-Jeannet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words and to go after my colleague, Representative Soper. He brought to light a little bit about what I wanted to bring to light as well. There are two words that really fan political flames and fan fear and terror and tears, and those words are white supremacy. And it's hard for us to say those words, white supremacy, especially if we have white skin. Because any of us who have white skin have benefited in one way, shape, or form from white supremacy. I often think about white supremacy from the way that it has attacked my family as a Jewish family in Ohio growing up, and my experiences. But I encourage us all to expand our experiences and our understanding of white supremacy and read the book Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. If you think you know white supremacy, you do not know white supremacy. Understanding how it laid the underpinnings of our country will help you understand why the battle is far from over. I would like to read a short excerpt, very short, from the book. America is an old house. We can never declare the work over. Wind, flood, drought, and human upheavals batter a structure that is already fighting whatever flaws were left unattended in the original foundation. When you live in an old house, you may not want to go into the basement after a storm to see what the rains have wrought. Choose not to look, however, at your own peril. The owner of an old house knows that whatever you are ignoring will never go away. Whatever is lurking will fester whether you choose to look or not. Ignorance is no protection from the consequences of inaction. Whatever you are wishing away will gnaw at you until you gather the courage to face what you would rather not see. White supremacy is something I believe none of us would like to see, but we have to understand it if we're going to truly put a stop to it. In honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I implore each of you to pick up this book by Isabel Wilkerson, give it a read, and then let's have some real dialogue about the change we can make. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Michelson-Jeannet. Representative Carver.
Well, I am honored to say
a few short words about who I regard as one of the moral authorities in our country's history. You know, he called out the divergence between the principles of individual citizens fully realizing our constitutional rights, but more than that, the unequal opportunity to pursue happiness. All the aspects of unjust laws and structures and institutions that didn't just deny fundamental constitutional rights, but all of the ripple effects that ended up being a barrier, a denial of opportunity, a system of where people who without those unjust aspects in society would have been able to more greatly pursue their happiness and realize their dream. And to me, Dr. King's words really speak to that unfinished business. You know, I think for so many of us, we are impacted by the people that we come into contact with. And like Representative Ortiz, my experience in the military was such a blessing in so many ways, not just to me and my ability to serve, but the people who I came in contact with whose life experience was very different than mine. And I see those people speaking to me in various aspects of the work that I do here. And I won't get into that except to say, our work is not done here in this country until we can make real for every citizen, particularly the citizens of color, make real for them the full and complete realization of their constitutional rights, the full and complete opportunity to pursue happiness and their dreams and their aspirations, without a shadow or barrier that prevents that based upon the color of their skin or their ethnic origin. It is hideous. It is obscene. We must commit to that. That is not just where we need to be as citizens and elected officials, but at this time in history, I think we all have a fundamental commitment. How do we preserve the good of our democratic principles and constitutional republic and constitutional rights into the next generation from all the challenges we have seen, particularly in the last very sad period. We're in a very sad period of our history. So we have that obligation, but we have an equally important obligation in the bills we run, but also not just how those bills affect somebody of our lived experience, but trying to open our minds to how those bills affect the lived experience of our fellow citizens who have had a very different life experience, particularly in communities of color. So we need to be open to that. We need to commit to doing what we can in every generation to move us closer to the full realization for every citizen, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, sex, the full realization for that citizen, regardless of zip code and family history and other aspects, to be able to live in this country being assured that they can pursue their happiness, their dream, realize the American dream. That, I think, is our fundamental obligation in this body and as citizens when we leave service in this body. And I thank my colleagues for bringing this resolution.
Thank you, Representative Carver. Minority Leader McCain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Exum, I know exactly how you feel. How do you follow Representative Carver? It is one of the true honors of serving in this body that we get to be around people who think so deeply and who can share from their heart something that I hope touches all of us. I was sitting over here on the side, and I too have not come to speak on this, and I think that this is a very, very good year when we do. When you hear so many voices and so many calls to what I think we should do. But I was sitting on the side, and I looked out, and I left my glasses on my desk. And it's not that I can't see, it's just I can't see well. And what I realized is that as I'm looking out over the House, I'm actually not aware of every single person and what they're wearing and what their mask looks like. But I am aware of where they sit, what they're doing. I am actually aware of the color of their skin. But it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. And it just, as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, you know, I grew up a very poor kid in northern Missouri. It has nothing to do with the kind of struggles that we've heard here before, but my parents moved me from outside Philadelphia to Missouri because they wanted to be farmers, and I just was the kid with a different accent. And so I did feel what it was like to be different, but in a sea of other white kids, it wasn't that much different, and it certainly did not bring any real hardship to me. But I was raised a Quaker, and so I was not just raised with the idea that, well, that you can torture small children by going to a silent meeting and making them sit there, but I was raised with the idea that you fight for what you believe, and you fight with yourself. You fight for what you believe in the best way you can. Quakers, if you don't know this, are some of the leaders, if you will, of civil disobedience. Quakers, as early as they were, Quakers were the majority when this nation was founded in the cities where it was founded. And they believed that there was that of God in everyone, no matter who you were. At a time when there were differences in law and in society, Quakers believed you are a child of God no matter who you are. That really struck me. What strikes me today is how much division we see. Representative Ortiz asked a question a while back, how do we get this much division? And if he remembers, I pulled my phone out of my pocket and I said, I think this might be one of the reasons why. Because in our world today, I get an entry into his life, let's say, that I didn't earn. I know him, but I don't know him. I have met him. We're Facebook friends. And so therefore, I get an entry into his life that is suddenly much deeper than what I've earned. And I may say things, and I may do things, and he may see things that I like and do that we don't have the glue of that relationship to understand. And so when I read Dr. King's prayer this morning, one of the things that strikes me so much is that we fight this battle against what is the best of us. And we fight that battle sometimes in opposition to a relationship with our God. All God wants is a relationship with us. And what we owe each of each other is a relationship between us. Because it's that relationship that we pursue that means that we can know each other and we can learn of those lived experiences. And we can learn about a different way of looking at things. And we can learn about people who live a life nothing like ours. And then we can take that experience and pour it into the laws we write so that we truly serve everyone. I miss a friend of mine in this house. I miss Jim Wilson. That man loved every single one of you. No matter who you were, no matter where you came from, no matter what you were able to accomplish. That is the spirit of how we should live. That is truly the spirit when I read Dr. King's words, when I think of a world beyond where we are today, where we truly can say that the barriers are broken down and that we live as brothers and sisters.
Representative Herod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. It's an honor to be here with you all, and I greatly appreciate all of your words to honor the legacy of Dr. King. I'm going to read a quote from Dr. King that most folks don't quote in this chamber. He says, why is equality so studiously avoided? Why does white America delude itself, and how does it rationalize the evil that it retains? The majority of white Americans consider themselves sincerely committed to justice for the Negro. They believe that American society is essentially hospitable to fair play and to steady growth toward a middle-class utopia embodying racial harmony. But unfortunately, this is a fantasy of deception and comfortable vanity. Members, in order for us to truly root out inequality, we must get uncomfortable. We must release this vanity that we don't see in color and acknowledge that we and society, in fact, does. I don't want you not to see that I am a Black woman because my mother fought for the ability for me to stand here and proudly proclaim it so. We must root out white supremacy in this nation, and as legislators, it is our job to start by legislating for equality. Just this summer, we sat in this chamber and watched as protests crying for equality for Black lives rang out not only in Denver, but across the country. Protests that called for justice and just the ability to live as Black people in this society. Justice for Elijah McClain, justice for Breonna Taylor, justice for George Floyd. The images that we saw of protesters just saying that Black Lives Matter, who were met with rubber bullets and jeers and sneers, those images remind me of the images that we saw of Dr. King and Congressman Lewis, who were faced by dogs and water cannons, beaten by members of their community, members of our America, for simply saying that we matter, that we deserve the right as Black folks to vote and to live in an equal society. We were simply asking for justice as they have been asking for justice, as my ancestors have been asking for justice. We continue that ask. And in the moment when I, standing with the Honorable Jonathan Singer, was shot at by those who wished to spark racial divisions, I stood there because I knew that my ancestors, my grandparents, fought for equality so that we had the right to say that, yes, in fact, that Black lives do matter and we will not be silenced. I will say that we as a legislative body came together and answered those calls for justice. We stepped away from our aisles and from the D and the R behind our name. We fought and we worked hard to pass Law Enforcement Accountability, Senate Bill 217. And even members who didn't vote for it, you all stood up and helped make the bill better. And I want to thank you for your involvement. And I want to thank my side of the aisle for standing so uncomfortably in the racial divisions that were dividing our nation and saying that we're going to do something about this. You see, Dr. King was a criminal. Dr. King was arrested. He was vilified. And he was assassinated for saying that Black lives do matter as much as everyone else's. We cannot stand and say that we stand for equality if we roll our eyes and turn our backs every time someone comes down to this well and speaks of inequality and race and justice. Every time someone says that this country has disproportionately harmed Black people. We can't stand and say that we want to honor the dreams of Dr. King if we can't say that the laws that have been written in this Capitol are inherently racist and built on white supremacy. But we also can't stand and say that we support his legacy if we don't stand up and say, I can fix it. I have the power to bring forward a bill that will address inequality in whichever way you like. And I will tell you that your efforts will be met with open arms, open ears, and open hearts from members of the Black Caucus, and from myself particularly. I want to be clear that we are not dividing ourselves as a nation by talking about Black lives. We as Black people are not dividing or being divisive by talking about our experience as Black people. White supremacy has done that for us. You know, I echo the words of my colleagues, Representative Jackson, in saying that I'm tired. I'm tired of carrying this burden as a Black woman and watching as people go on about their lives and don't acknowledge the injustice and inequalities that are happening right here in Colorado, in this country, and even in this chamber. I'm tired of waking up after another sleepless night, knowing that there is a state trooper parked in front of my house because I am receiving death threats. Because I choose to speak up and stand up for equality. I'm tired of it. So how do we continue in this fight? Why do I keep doing what I do? Why do I encourage Representative Bacon to run for office and sit next to Representative Exum and say, go and speak your truth? Because it matters. You know, I can't speak about justice and Dr. King and moving forward as a country when I know we're not as far as some folks would like to delude themselves into thinking, without acknowledging the words of my colleague this morning, Representative Sandridge. Representative Sandridge, we have gone on a journey together. And maybe you've always been this way, but I have seen your heart recently. And I have seen it shown up not only in your words, but in your actions and your deeds. I'm honored to stand here with you. I'm honored to be in this fight with you. And I'm honored to learn from you. Thank you for stepping up for me. Thank you. Excuse me. This country wants to continue to oppress us, but we stand even when we shake because we know that our kids deserve better, that our families deserve better. And even as white supremacists storm the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., where my best friend is crowded under a desk, Congressman Joe Neguse, and there is a noose hanging outside of his workplace ready to hang him, we continue to fight for equality. And even as the first woman of color, Black and Indian woman, ascends onto the White House and into the White House, we ignore the fact that it is enshrouded in hate and threats, and we cannot even celebrate her inauguration together.
You have less than 1 minute, Representative Herring.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But we will continue to fight. We will continue to fight for justice. We will continue to honor Dr. King. We will continue to honor Representative Wilma Webb, who fought for this holiday, also under threat, for many years. And we will continue to, yes, extend that olive branch to our colleagues and our friends who are not Black, who have chosen not to delude themselves anymore into this false reality that racial justice has already happened, but instead say, what can I do to make it better? Thank you for the work that we are about to go into as a General Assembly and legislative body. Thank you for addressing these issues. And please reach out if you have any questions. You don't stand in my shoes. You cannot stand in my shoes. But I do hope that you can listen and learn and that we can grow together and figure out how we as a nation can come united and address the evil that is white supremacy and racial injustice. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Harrod. Is there further discussion on House Resolution 1004? Seeing none. Is there objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of the passage, the question before us is the passage of House Resolution 1004. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Resolution 1004 is adopted. Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Do you mind moving that?
Okay. I move that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Thank you, Representative Exum. Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for House concur on Senate amendments.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order. Madam Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for immediate consideration of Senate amendments on House bills, please.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. We see no objection. We will proceed out of order for immediate consideration of Senate amendments to House bills. Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hold on one sec, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Thank you very much. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1003.
House Bill 21-1003 by Representative Benavides, also Senator Fenberg, concerning the conduct of legislative proceedings during a declared disaster emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Gregorio. Madam Speaker Pro Tem, Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have the infamous honor of being the first in the 73rd General Assembly to ask for concurrence with Senate amendments. And so I move for that concurrence.
Thank you, Representative Benavides. Is there any further discussion on concurrence? Representative Larson.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you. So, colleagues, again, it's a sad start to 2021 when the Senate has more wisdom than our esteemed upper chamber. But essentially, the only difference between the version we sent over and the version that we have is that it has incorporated Representative Bockenfeld's amendment that we rejected. So I too ask for concurrence and thank the Senate for some good work.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the House is concurring with Senate amendments to House Bill 1003. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Jackson votes no. Representative Amable, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Amable votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Lantine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lantine votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Representative Gray votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Sirota votes no. Please close the machine. With 54 ayes, 9 noes, and 2 excused, the House, the House concurs with Senate amendments to House Bill 1003. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1003 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. The motion before us is the repassage of House Bill 1003 as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sirota votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Amable, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Amable votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Lantine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lantine votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Yes. Representative Gray votes yes. Please close the machine. With 40 ayes, 23 noes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1003 is repassed as amended. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1001.
House Bill 21-1001 by Representative Escar and McKean, also Senators Fenberg and Holbert, concerning authorization for remote participation in political party committee meetings.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think she put this on me because, well, regretfully, Mr. Speaker, I would like to, man, I am having a hard time spitting these words out.
And before you do, Mr. Minority Leader, members, let's keep it quiet in the chamber. We are on Senate amendments to House bills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Crybaby.
I would like to ask that the House concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1001.
With all due respect, I couldn't hear the motion.
I move the House concur with these amendments that the
Okay.
Senate put on to House Bill 101.
Does anyone want to explain?
Nope.
Okay. The motion before us.
I'll be glad to explain. The Senate thought that it would probably make sense if we also included county assemblies and county, to make sure we included county commissioners and vacancies of county commissioners in this particular piece of legislation.
Madam Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I just want to assure everyone that the amendment was also approved by everyone who had been working so hard on drafting this original piece of legislation as well, including both major parties. We ask for a yes vote on concurrence.
Representative Pelton, come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for giving me some time. My question is, it says allows for state Senate, House, and County Commissioner District Committees. In the smaller counties, the county commissioners don't have a district committee, so I'm wondering if it should just be county committees for county reorganization.
Mr. Minority Leader McKean.
What is wrong with you? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know what? Let me take a second and take a look at that. May we have just a brief moment to do that?
Say that. What just happened?
We were asked if we would consider changing that, but let me just go take a quick look at it and confer.
The motion before us is on concurrence to Senate amendments to House Bill 1001. That is the motion we are on. Why doesn't the House stand in a brief recess? House will come back to order. Mr. Minority Leader McKean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Representative Pelton, thank you for the question. After taking a look at the actual physical amendment that they put on, it makes much sense that everybody is covered under this. I would ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to concur? Seeing none, the motion before the House is to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1001. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sirota votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Amable, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Amable votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Wantine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Wantine votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Representative Gray votes yes. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Please close the machine. With 61 ayes, 1 no, and 3 excused, the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill 1001 passes. Madam Majority Leader. And let's keep the paper airplanes to a minimum from the gallery. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1001 as amended.
The motion before us is the repassage of House Bill 1001 as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sirota votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Amable, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Amable votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Wantine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Wantine votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Yes. Representative Gray votes yes. Please close the machine. With 58 ayes, 4 noes, and 3 excused, House Bill 1001 is repassed as amended. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Madam Majority Leader. Actually, why don't we do business to read? Mr. Gregorio.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate has concurred in House
Message from the
Amendment-
Senate can be printed in the Journal.
Dear honorable members of the General Assembly, welcome to the first regular session.
Message from the Governor can be printed in the Journal. Introductions of bills or resolutions and memorials.
SJR 21-002 by Senator Fenberg, also Representative Mullica, concerning the officers and employees of the first regular session of the 73rd General Assembly. SJR 21-003 by Senator Garcia, also Representative Garnett, concerning the appointment of members of the Colorado Commission on Uniform State Laws. SJR 21-004 by Senators Fenberg and Holbert, also Representatives Escar and McKean, concerning a temporary adjournment of the first regular session of the 73rd General Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Gregorio. Introduction of memorial.
SJM 21-001 by Senators Garcia and Gardner, also Representatives Snyder and Carver, concerning reaffirming Colorado to be the permanent location for the United States Space Command, and in connection therewith, urging the Department of Defense to keep the United States Space Command in Colorado.
Representative Carver and Representative Snyder. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Rule 26C be suspended for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Memorial 21-001.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Seeing no objection, the rules will be suspended for immediate consideration. Mr. Gregorio, why don't we reread that title? Reread the title of Senate Joint Memorial 001.
SJM 21-001 by Senators Garcia and Gardner, also Representatives Snyder and Carver, concerning reaffirming Colorado to be the permanent location for the United States Space Command, and in connection therewith, urging the Department of Defense to keep the United States Space Command in Colorado.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As many of you know, a decision was made without any real explanation at all as to how the Space Command got just unilaterally decided to go to Huntsville, Alabama. And so, you know, that's been a big issue. We have so many people down in the Pikes Peak region and across Colorado that have worked tirelessly in preparing a great application. We had the support of the Air Force and so many other entities. So with that, I'll turn it over to my fellow co-prime here.
And thank you, Representative Snyder. Representative Carver, do you mind moving the memorial? Representative Carver.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move SJM 20-001 and ask for its approval.
Thank you, Representative Carver. That has been properly moved. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This whole effort has really been Team Colorado in our effort to get U.S. Space Command approved to be here in Colorado as its permanent location. And I want to especially commend the really outstanding support of Governor Polis, Lieutenant Governor Primavera, their staff, working tirelessly with our leaders in the Pikes Peak area, led by Mayor Suthers and the entire team, really putting forth the case on why U.S. Space Command should be permanently located in Colorado Springs. And so we were deeply disappointed by the decision that was announced. This memorial sets forth the case, and we hope that that decision will be reconsidered in the near future and decided on the merits.
Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we also ask that the resolution be read at length.
Representative or Mr. Gregorio.
Whereas our nation and the world have significantly benefited from technological and scientific advances resulting from space exploration and aerospace activities, and Colorado is paving the way for new discoveries in the frontiers of space by having a rich history in aerospace development and being at the forefront of space travel, exploration, and aerospace research. And whereas Colorado is the acting Provisional Space Command base, and it will remain the provisional base until 2023. Colorado is also the center for the United States military space operations and strategy, according to the Colorado Space Coalition. The state's military commands are the primary customers for the space-based research, development, acquisitions, and operations, representing nearly 90% of space-related expenditure by the military. Moving the United States Space Command, U.S. Spacecom, to Huntsville, Alabama will be incredibly disruptive to the national defense strategy. In addition, it will cause a major upheaval in existing infrastructure and jobs in the state, which will result in higher costs and less efficient outcomes for the United States military. And whereas Colorado is strategically located at the center of our national and space defense, we are the home to 5 key strategic military commands: North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, United States Northern Command, U.S. NORTHCOM, United States Strategic Command's Joint Functional Command, Component Command for Space, Missile Warning Center, the United States Air Force Space Command, and the United States Army Space and Missile Defense Command / Army Forces Strategic Command, and 5 military installations, including the United States Air Force bases Buckley, Cheyenne Mountain, Peterson, and Schreiber, as well as Fort Carson Army Base. And whereas the 460th Space Wing at Buckley Air Force Base provides operational command and control of 3 constellations to space-based infrared missile warning systems, has been defending America continuously since 1970 and is a critical part of the global defense and national security. And whereas Colorado leads the charge in bringing current and future global positioning system assets to life, a service provided free to the world by Air Force Space Command in Colorado Springs, from the operation of GPS satellites by Schreiber Air Force Base to GPS-3, the most powerful GPS satellite to date, being designed and built by Lockheed Martin and launched by United Launch Alliance with Raytheon developing the command and control capabilities, and with companies such as Boeing, Harris Corporation, Braxton Technologies, and Infity Systems Engineering also supporting GPS development and operations from locations in Colorado. GPS technologies enable an integral part of our global economy to have an incalculable impact that has improved the everyday lives of billions of people around the world. And whereas Colorado's aerospace industry is home to a broad range of companies that create products and systems for commercial, military, and civil applications, such as spacecraft, launch vehicles, satellites, command and control software sensors, and navigation operations. These companies include Ball Aerospace, Boeing, Digital Globe, Harris Corporation, Lockheed Martin Space Systems, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Sierra Nevada Corporation, Teledyne Brown Engineering, and United Launch Alliance, which make up a large portion of the aerospace sector. And whereas Colorado has an existing educated workforce, ranks second in the nation with residents with a bachelor's degree or higher, and a pipeline of higher education institutions to sustain future growth, we are home to the United States Air Force Academy and many colleges and universities, including the University of Colorado Boulder and the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, Colorado School of Mines, Colorado State University, Metropolitan State University of Denver, Colorado Mesa University, and Fort Lewis College. Altogether, they provide access to world-class aerospace-related degrees and offer aerospace companies one of the country's most educated workforces. And whereas Colorado is the home to some amazing research institutions, these institutions include the prestigious Laboratory for Astrometric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado Boulder. It began in 1948, a decade before NASA, and it is the world's only research institute to have sent instruments to all 8 planets and to Pluto, combining all aspects of space exploration through science, engineering, missile operations, and scientific data analysis. And whereas Colorado is also home to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Space Weather Prediction Center, a world-leading center of predictions for the solar and near-Earth space environment and the nation's official source of watches, warnings, and alerts of incoming solar storms using satellite observations to protect and save lives and property. And whereas various organizations are key to Colorado's prominence in aerospace, such as the Colorado Space Coalition, a group of industry stakeholders working to make Colorado a center of excellence for aerospace, the Colorado Space Business Roundtable, working to bring together aerospace stakeholders from the industry, government, and academia for roundtable discussions in business development and to encourage grassroots citizen participation in aerospace issues, the Colorado chapter of Citizens for Space Exploration, whose mission is to promote better understanding of aerospace and its importance in our economy and daily lives, as well as to promote the importance of human space exploration. Manufacturers Edge, a statewide manufacturing assistance center that encourages the strength and competitiveness of Colorado manufacturers by providing on-site technical assistance through coaching, training, and consulting, by providing collaboration-focused industry programs, and by leveraging government, university, and economic development partnerships and the Space Foundation, founded in 1983 with its world headquarters in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which holds an annual space symposium bringing together civil, commercial, and national security space leaders from around the world to discuss, address, and plan for the future of space. And whereas, for the aforementioned reasons, it is the best interest of the American taxpayer to keep U.S. Spacecom in the state because Colorado is already fulfilling the mission of the U.S. Spacecom because Colorado Springs has its place in the community infrastructure, capacity, and community support to champion an expanding mission because the move will cost the United States billions of dollars to relocate the facility, and because the move would severely disrupt the Colorado aerospace industry, which has grown to support the mission now. Therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 73rd General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the General Assembly, 1, recognizing Colorado's unique blend of military installations and major commands, private aerospace companies, academic and research institutions, and government entities, and the valuable synergies this ecosystem provides, strongly urge the Department of Defense and the incoming Biden-Harris administration to reevaluate the merits of this irresponsible decision and should rightfully conclude that it is the correct decision to keep the existing United Space Command in Colorado. 2, furthermore, strongly urge the Department of Defense and the incoming presidential administration to permanently base the United States Space Command in Colorado, recognizing that Colorado provides the existing command structure, base infrastructure, and communications platform necessary to successfully host additional national security initiatives and ensure coordination of efforts without committing additional funds. 3, proudly express that Colorado has deep ties with the Department of Defense and immense patriotic commitment to providing for the nation's security and bolstering our defense. 4, express our most sincere and deepest appreciation to our service members and civilian employees working in the supporting military and civilian aerospace companies, military installations, and civil organizations in Colorado. And 5, hereby declare Colorado to be the prime location for the permanent headquarters for U.S. Spacecom. Be it further resolved that copies of this Senate memorial be sent to President-elect Joseph R. Biden, Jr., Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, Congressman Nancy Pelosi, Congressman Kevin McCarthy, Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Mitch McConnell, Senator Michael Bennet, Senator John Hickenlooper, Congresswoman Diana DeGette, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, Congressman Jason Crow, Congressman Joe Nagese, Congressman Ken Buck, Congressman Doug Lamborn, Congressman Ed Perlmutter, Jim Bridenstone, NASA Administrator James W. Morehard, NASA Deputy Administrator Steve Dickinson, Federal Aviation Administration Administrator Governor Jared Polis, Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera, Brigadier General Laura Clellan, the Adjunct General, Colorado National Guard Wayne R. Moneth, Associate Administrator for Commercial Space Transportation at the Federal Aviation Administration General John W. J. Raymond, Air Force Space Command, Colonel Jacob Middleton, United States Air Force Commander, Aerospace Delta Facility, Colorado, Dr. Christopher Scalisi, Director, National Reconnaissance Office, Ross Gerlich Bell, Executive Director, Aerospace States Association, Thomas E. Zellabor, Chief Executive Officer, Space Foundation, Dr. Ronald Sega, Co-Chair, Colorado Space Coalition, Michael Gass, Co-Chair, Colorado Space Coalition, and Stacy DeFore, Chair, Colorado Citizen Space Exploration.
Woo! Mr. Gregorio. I thought maybe Representative Steiner was going to give you some relief, but apparently not. Is there further discussion? Seeing none. The question before us is the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 001. We're going to have to proceed. Oh, yeah. So let me start that over. The motion before us is the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 001. Is there objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Joint Memorial 001 is adopted. There has been a request to open up the machine for co-sponsors. Please open up the machine and members proceed to co-sponsor, if you would like. Representative McLaughlin, Tutone, Kipp, Michelson, Janae, Jackson, Sirota, Judah, McCormick, Doherty, Cutter, Ricks, Lontine, Burnett.
I know. So it's Jonah Goose.
Please. I think I got Tutone and Kipp. Did I not get Tutone, Kipp, McCormick? Judah. All right. Please close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Rule 26C be suspended for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 21-003.
Seeing no objection, the rules will be suspended for immediate consideration to Senate Joint Resolution 003. This is the Uniform Law Commission appointments. It is my resolution, so I will proceed down into the well and ask Madam Speaker Pro Tem to take the dais.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move for the passage of Senate Joint Resolution 003 and ask that it be read at length.
SJR 21-003 by Senator Garcia, also Representatives Garnett, concerning the appointment of members of the Colorado Commission on Uniform State Laws. Be it resolved by the Senate of the 73rd General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that pursuant to Section 2-3-601 Colorado Revised Statutes, Senator Bob Gardner, Representative Carrie Tipper, Ms. Alicia Duran, Ms. Claire Levy, Ms. Ann McGinnon, and Ms. Sarah S. Scott are hereby appointed as members of the Colorado Commission on Uniform State Laws for terms of 2 years each.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I am excited about these appointments. We are so very well served by Senator Gardner and Representative Tipper on the Uniform Law Commission. There are additional diverse appointments to the Uniform Law Commission. And for anyone who can sit in a room with 186 attorneys and debate legislation line by line, God bless you. Thank you for your service. And I would hope everyone can support this resolution.
Members, the motion before us is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 21-003. Is there any further discussion? If not, is there any objection to a voice vote? Oh, there is discussion. No, there isn't any discussion, so is there any objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Mr. Speaker, did you want to move to let everybody be added as the ayes have it, and the Senate Joint Resolution 21-003 passes. Mr. Speaker, did you want to make a motion about co-sponsors? Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move that this morning's roll call be added as co-sponsors.
There's seen no objection to that. All of this morning's roll call will be added as co-sponsors to this resolution. Thank you, members. And we're going to wait for the speaker to come back up.
Madam Majority Leader. Members, just a heads up, we have three more quick resolutions, and then announcements and introductions. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that House Rule 26C be suspended for immediate consideration of SJR 21-002.
I don't think we actually have to suspend the rules for the consideration of this resolution because we introduced it and laid it over one day. Yep, no worries. So members, this is House Resolution 1003. It's a swearing in of staff.
No. SJR 2.
Okay, we're on. Okay, all right. These are all the Senate joint resolutions that we got over this morning. So, sorry about that. That's the next resolution. We are on Senate Joint Resolution 2. Is there any objections to suspending the rules for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 2? Seeing none. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Joint Resolution 2.
SJR 21-002 by Senator Fenberg, also Representative Mullica, concerning the officers and employees of the first regular session of the 73rd General Assembly.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2-2-305, Colorado Revised Statutes, Senate Joint Resolution 21-002 creates the following positions for the first regular session of the 73rd General Assembly, with the monthly compensation to be paid to the persons elected or appointed to each position in the range set opposite the position. Members, this sets the compensation for our staffs, and I can say they earn every penny of their compensation. And I ask for its adoption.
Great. Thank you, Representative Mullica. Is there further discussion? Will you move the resolution, please, Representative Mullica?
Sorry about that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I move SJR 21-002.
It has been properly moved. Let's make sure that all the staff has an opportunity to come in. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Mullica. And I could not echo your comments more. We talk a lot about what we do here, and in fact, I think we had the conversation the other day about who really makes this place run. Look around you. These are the people who make what we do work. So thank you, and everyone on House Services thanks you. And we thank you because we can't do what we have to do without you. And it seems so seamless, and it seems so easy. When we put something in our filing cabinet, it gets put away. When we ask for something, we find it, and when we make sure that we do everything the right way, it gets done the right way. Thank you so much.
Is there further discussion? Let me just say to all the staff, thank you for your service and your dedication to the state of Colorado, to all the state representatives here, and we are indebted to all of you, and we are honored to honor you today. So before we do that, is there objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of passage of Senate Joint Resolution 2 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Senate Joint Resolution 2 is adopted. Let's give them a round of applause. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may I ask that this morning's roll call be added as co-sponsors?
Seeing no objection, this morning's roll call will be added as co-sponsors to Senate Joint Resolution 2. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Resolution 1003.
House Resolution 21-10003 by Representative Mullica, also concerning employees and positions for the House of Representatives convened in the first regular session of the 73rd General Assembly.
Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of H.R. 21-1003. House Resolution 21-1003 is the resolution that hires the most capable and talented House employees, both partisan and nonpartisan, without whom we could not do our jobs efficiently. And let's face it, they help us look our best. Mr. Speaker, I enthusiastically ask for a yes vote on House Resolution 10003.
Thank you, Representative Mullica. Is there further discussion? Mr. Minority Leader McKean.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. And folks, you get to do what you do, like I said, but you get to do it without sometimes thinking about it. This morning, what did we need? We needed a resolution because we needed to know what we were voting on. And boy, howdy, did we get it fast. And not just that, but we got it because it's important that the work goes the right way. We've got the best people here. So stand and let's hear a boisterous yes.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. Is there objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of the passage of House Resolution 1003 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. House Resolution 1003 is adopted. Okay. Now, it's my honor to administer the oath. So for all the staff, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. Sorry. All right, here we go. Everyone ready to take the oath? Let's start again. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of my office to the best of my knowledge and ability. So help me God. Congratulations and thank you for your service. Co-sponsors. Michelson, Janae, McLaughlin, Titone, Kipp, Jackson, Sirota, Judah, Doherty, Cutter, McCormick, Amable, Ricks, Lontine, Burnett, Gray, Baisley, look at that, Baisley.
Leslie, do you want to co-sponsor?
Judah, McCormick, please close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House Rule 26C be suspended for immediate consideration of SJR 21004.
Seeing no objection, the House will suspend the rules for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Resolution 004. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the Senate Joint Resolution 004.
SJR 21-004 by Senator Fenberg, also Senators Fenberg and Holbert, also Representatives Escar and McKean, concerning a temporary adjournment of the first regular session of the 73rd General Assembly.
Madam Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Senate Joint Resolution 21004.
It has been properly moved. Further discussion.
There you go.
There you go.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is literally what puts us into a temporary adjournment until February 16th. I'd ask for a yes vote, please.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Is there further discussion? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll keep my comments brief and make my full objections known in a moment after we get past this. But I just wanted to speak to the body and encourage a no vote on this because I feel strongly. We spent, the past few days, really talking about this issue, and I think it's important for me to come up here and at least say that I think this is not the proper way we should be doing things. We had a very robust debate that I won't get into now, but I do feel that, in light of the fact that all of us, swore an oath to the Constitution, that this perhaps is not constitutional. And I would encourage everyone to understand that and also fully understand that the voters themselves don't expect us and shouldn't expect us, for good reason, to be doing this stuff. We need to be here addressing the critical emergencies of our state as it relates to COVID. And for us to be taking this month-long break, I think, is something that is against the will of the people. And so I would ask everyone here to vote no, and I do ask for a machine vote, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Soper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I, too, am going to ask for a no vote. Recently, I wrote an op-ed in Colorado Politics in which I advocated why I'd be voting no on this. And it's because here we've been here for the last 3 days, or 2.5, almost 3 days. We've put in place a lot of protection for members, whether it's testing, whether it's temperature controls, whether it's the plexiglass between the desks, whether it's the wearing of face masks, whether it's hand sanitizer like we see here, or coverings on the microphones. Members have been cautious to keep a little more distance from each other. We have put in place these safeguards as a body to be able to protect each and every one of us and to protect our families. Many Coloradans every single day go to work, whether it's in a grocery store as a grocery store clerk, whether it's in a hospital as a nurse or a doctor. They face many risks throughout this pandemic as well, and that we, as the people's representatives, should be able to come here and to get the work done that we were elected to do together. And if it's completely unsafe, quite frankly, we shouldn't even have places like Walmart open. So that's why I'm going to be a no vote on this. I respect where it comes from. I do want to make that very clear that I do respect the delay, and I respect the fact that our leaders in this chamber are looking out for our best interests. So I also want to make that clear, and that thank you for considering every aspect of this pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Minority Leader McKean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And folks, I'm not here to ask for your vote. I'm here to say that one of the things that moves me in terms of what we do here, while I agree with Representative Williams' points in many ways on the constitutionality that we have had many discussions here about, I will tell you one of the things that moves me is that we all come here as a commitment to our service, but also as a choice. We know that we can come to this building. We also know that we can appear remotely and do a lot of our work that way. The folks who cannot are our staff. The folks who have to be here are our staff. And I think that at this moment where we see such a rise, such a peak of the cases of this vile disease, that I can support going away and coming back. Does it mean I agree with the basis? Not always. But I can support going away and coming back, because I think our staff deserve our ultimate sacrifice, which is it's going to be harder to do our jobs in the next 30-some days. And I can tell you that is true, that when we try to do these jobs and try to work on our bills and everything, when we're not here, it's tough. And this job for us doesn't go away in the next 30 days. So not here to ask for your vote, here to tell you I think I owe it to staff to say I can go away, we can do a safer job and come back.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a conversation that was had in a bipartisan way. We worked to figure out what was this session going to look like. We talked to epidemiologists, we talked to each other. We wanted to figure out what is the best way to make sure that we could safely do the work of the people for Colorado. I don't think anybody wants to take a break. We all are just getting into our groove. Some of us, I'm still working on that. But we're getting there. And now we're going to take a month off. But it's not just about the 100 of us who are elected to serve. There are a ton of nonpartisan staff and partisan staff who don't have the choice. If we're in this building, they're in this building. They have to wear masks. They have to do the safety precautions. But the elected officials all don't have to, and some of them don't. It's not safe for all of us to be in this building at the same time. So we have remote participation. Yes, great. That's awesome. I love it. I did it. Our nonpartisan staff don't always have that option. We didn't do this because it sounded like we would like to take a month off, and I don't think there's a single legislator in this room who's going to be kicking their feet up for a month. If I know the work that we have ahead of us, we're going to be making those conversations with our constituents. We're going to continue to draft legislation that we know absolutely needs to pass this year. Members, this is about public safety, the safety of all of us, all of our families. My wife is a registered nurse who works every single day with some of the most vulnerable people. If I were to, for some reason, contract COVID and take it home to her this weekend, do you know, and she didn't know she had it yet, do you know how many patients a day she sees? Patients who are in heart failure, that if they contracted this, they wouldn't make it. So please think broader. This isn't about legislators taking a month off. This is about every single person who works in this building and their friends and their families and the lives that that impacts. We're simply asking to take a month while the numbers continue to come down, while the vaccines continue to be distributed to everyone across the state, until it's safer for us all to come together and do the good work that we all need to get done for the people of Colorado. I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come before you and all my esteemed colleagues supporting our Majority Leader and our Minority Leader. Although I do have significant questions on the constitutionality, I understand something that we all are facing. Now I'm going to back up to what I do in the country and try to explain myself, and I'll try to keep it brief. I handle thousands of cattle every year in our operation. Thousands of cattle that come from all over the western United States. In the cattle business, we have learned for decades that you must have a very comprehensive vaccination program to ensure the health of your livestock. Now, I don't want to get in the issue of am I for vaccination or am I against vaccination, because that is a personal right that should not be abridged. Your personal choices in this country should not be diminished, and you should always have those rights inherent by the U.S. Constitution, which we swear to uphold. But I will tell you what this is really about, in my mind, is an opportunity for all of us if we choose to get those vaccinations. We've all suffered loss, and in our family, we've suffered loss as well. And I often ask myself, would my aunt still be alive if she had the opportunity to get these vaccinations? The answer may be yes, the answer may be no. As my good Muslim colleague here would say, inshallah, inshallah. It's God's will what happens to us as a Christian, as a God-fearing man. It's God's will. But in any religion, well, not in every religion, but at least in the religions that look towards God and heaven. So what I will tell you is this is an opportunity. This 30 days is an opportunity, and I encourage everybody to consider this importance. Because when I go and get my vaccination, which the full-time staff is helping us coordinate, and I get that done, then I'm going to be like the cattle that I care for. And when you come on the tour on February 10th and come out to Buffalo Springs Ranch, if you're able to do that, and I encourage everybody, both legislators, family, staff, whomever, come out and see. I will explain to you the importance of our comprehensive vaccination program for our livestock, because it's very important for their health. And I understand the importance of it. I see it every day in the business that we do and the importance of it. In the equine industry, we have a veterinarian, I think, over here to my right, remotely. In the beef industry, in the dairy industry, in all industries, in the pork industry, a very comprehensive vaccination program. And you say, well, wait a minute, why is that important? Well, I'll tell you why it's important. Because what we do in livestock production, concentrating the livestock and trying to produce what we produce so all of you can be fed, we have the same thing that you have here in your urban centers. Because when I go home to Buffalo Springs Ranch, I don't need this. COVID's not out there in northern Washington County. It hadn't found us yet, and it probably never will, unless somebody from an urban center or a very concentrated area brings it there. You go to Kiowa County, you know, it's open. The air is clean. The sun shines. It's just a different environment. But I will tell you, this 30 days, I encourage everybody to consider the importance of what we're offering to solve this problem. Because when we all get vaccinated, or most of us get vaccinated, or a greater percentage than not gets vaccinated, this thing is going to go away. We're going to beat COVID. And COVID is going to be a thing of the past, because I'm sick and tired of it. And we can get back to business as usual. And there is no new normal. Not for me. I'm going back to the normal of American life and what we do in our societies. Okay? And we will move forward with the things that we think are important and in things we've talked about today with our memorialization of Martin Luther King. But I will tell you, let's go get vaccinations if we need them. Let's take this time to do those things. And let's come back ready to go to work. And next year, in 2022, let's not do any of this mess. Any of it. Let's come back and do what the Constitution asks us to do for the good people of this state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Minority Leader. Thank you, Majority Leader.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I won't repeat many of the points that had been made. I do want to underscore, however, the fact that although we have lots of safety precautions put forward to keep people safe, those are not universally adopted. And it isn't just members and staff who are at risk due to that, but it's also the public. So the people have a right to come in and have meaningful engagement in the legislative process. People like to be here when we have topics of interest to them, whether they want to come in and listen and learn, or whether they have important viewpoints that they want to share and make sure are considered as part of our legislative process. So this month, again, will give us some time for these numbers to come down and allow us to reconvene at a time when it's safe for the public to exercise their right to participate in the legislative process.
Representative Bachmanfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you as well, Mr. Bachmanfeld.
Folks, if the United States Congress can meet in January and do the people's work, there's no reason why we can't meet in January and do the people's work in our normal session. I ask for a no vote.
Thank you, Representative Bachmanfeld. Is there further discussion on Senate Joint Resolution 4? Seeing none. The question before us is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 4. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Titone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Titone votes yes. Representative Kipp, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Kipp votes yes. Representative Michelson-Jeannet, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Jeannet votes yes. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sirota, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sirota votes yes. Representative Judah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Judah votes yes. Representative Amable, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Amable votes yes. Representative McCormick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McCormick votes yes. Representative Doherty, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Doherty votes yes. Representative Cutter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Cutter votes yes. Representative Ricks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ricks votes yes. Representative Lantine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Lantine votes yes. Representative Burnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Burnett votes yes. Representative Gray, how do you vote? Yes. Representative Gray votes yes. Please close the machine. With 43 ayes, 20 noes, and 2 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 4 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative McLaughlin, Representative Kipp, Representative Michelson-Jeannet, Representative Jackson, Representative Judah, Representative Amable. Co-sponsor.
Mr. Speaker?
Representative Lantine. Representative Titone. Representative McCormick. Representative Doherty. Representative Sirota. Representative Cutter. Representative Ricks. Representative Burnett. Okay, please close the machine. Members, please hang tight. We are to announcements and introductions. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members, please bear with me. I've never actually invoked this rule, so this is a first for me, and I'm sure it's a first in a long time for this chamber. But, Mr. Speaker, I'll be invoking House Rule 24 and reading an official protest letter signed by 24 of my colleagues.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Williams. And give me one quick second to read the rule to everybody so that they have it. Rule 24 in the House rules is the protest rule. Any member shall have the right to protest any action of the House, stating the reasons therefor, and having obtained consent of the House and reduce the reasons to writing. The member may have the same entered in the journal, provided such reasons do not impugn the motives or character of any member of the General Assembly. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll just go ahead and read this, members, and then we'll go from there. Pursuant to Rule 24 of the Colorado House of Representatives, we submit this letter as an official protest of the planned use of Joint Rule 44G, which undermines the constitutional role of the legislature under the Colorado Constitution. Colorado citizens are struggling with job, health, and economic uncertainties. We cannot continue to delay the vital work of the legislature to get Colorado families back on their feet. This improper action lays the groundwork for transitioning Colorado's lawmakers away from being part-time citizen legislators to full-time professional politicians. Many of our rural colleagues have agricultural work that necessitates the length of our regular sessions remaining within the traditional time frame the voters established. Additionally, our suburban and urban colleagues, who are already hard-pressed to find private sector work under the normal length of the regular session will be even more unlikely to find unemployment elsewhere if the legislature meets throughout the year under Joint Rule 44G. Two outcomes are very likely to occur if we continue down this path. Either the General Assembly will be comprised of independently wealthy or retired individuals, or the taxpayers will see an increase in the cost of compensation and benefits to lawmakers in order to maintain the diverse socioeconomic membership it currently enjoys. These outcomes would unfairly harm the voters who intended to create and maintain a part-time legislature in the first place. The General Assembly exists to deliberate and develop workable solutions for all Coloradans. Its diverse composition and lawmaking processes ensure that a variety of perspectives are considered before a course of action is determined. In these times of emergency, especially when the state is considering whether to impose restrictions on economic activity or personal liberties, it is eminently important for the legislature to meet, to lead, and to resolve these issues. By scheduling our regular sessions in fits and starts during a declared disaster emergency, the General Assembly is effectively abdicating its authority and duty to represent the people's will to the executive branch. In the current instance, we have seen the executive branch legislating unilaterally for over 300 days through the promulgation of countless executive orders. CRS 24-33.5-7044 allows the governor to renew emergency declarations, but the provision was never intended by the legislature or the people to allow those powers to continue unabated. There have been nearly as many executive orders in the last year as the amount of bills passed in an average legislative session. The governor's emergency powers must be limited. Otherwise, our system's checks and balances are circumvented and the legislature's lawmaking authority is usurped. These orders have dealt with COVID-related matters, but they have also gone beyond the realm of the virus to advance other priorities that deserve debate. Due process requires that citizens have an opportunity to be heard, especially before their liberty interests are infringed. By allowing the executive branch to continue under this current course, issuing orders without meaningful citizen input, due process is threatened. The danger of allowing the executive branch to usurp the power of the legislature by making orders that go beyond the law is a threat to the liberties of the people guaranteed by our Creator and our Constitution. While the state has no credible justification to arbitrarily classify businesses as essential or non-essential, for it is not the job of the state to pick winners and losers, if we are going to do so, it must recognize that the legislative branch falls under the category of essential. Our constituents expect us to work, to represent them. Like the vast number of other state legislatures, we can develop protocols to ensure the public health. It is no more dangerous for us to meet than it was for shopping mall employees to work during the Christmas rush or Walmart employees to work every day. It's unconscionable that the General Assembly would potentially take multiple recesses during a declared disaster emergency when taxpayers, many of whom have lost their livelihoods, are counting on us to resolve this matter as quickly as possible so that they can return to their normal lives. We are their employees, and they are our boss. They are providing us a paycheck while many of them go without. We respectfully disagree with this decision to allow the majority to count calendar days non-consecutively. The term calendar days is not vague or ambiguous. As the voters understood it when they passed Amendment 3 in 1998, the plain meaning is that of 120 consecutive 24-hour periods running from midnight to midnight, with the first day beginning at, quote, 10 a.m. no later than the second Wednesday of January of each year, end quote. We also believe this undermines the role of the legislature and our constitutional system and separation of powers and checks and balances. Respectfully signed, myself, Representative Dave Williams, Representative Kevin Van Winkle, Representative Patrick Neville, Representative Shane Sandridge, Representative Kim Ransom, Representative Stephanie Luck, Representative Ron Hanks, Representative Janice Rich, Representative Matt Soper, Representative Mark Catlin, Representative Rod Pelton, Representative Mark Baisley, Representative Mike Lynch, Representative Tanya Van Beber, Representative Rod Bockenfeld, Representative Mary Bradfield, Representative Terry Carver, Representative Tim Geithner, Representative Richard Holtorf, Representative Andy Pico, Representative Perry Will, Representative Dan Woog, Representative Colin Larson, Representative Hugh McKean. Mr. Speaker, I ask that in accordance with House Rule 24 that this written letter be entered into the journal.
Thank you, Representative Williams. It will be, since you just read it, but the House will stand in a brief recess, and we'll be right back. The House will come back to order. Madam Majority Leader.
I have announcements.
Actually, I'll just say the few words. I certainly don't agree with the words that were in the letter, but especially as we start the 73rd General Assembly, it's important for us to recognize Rule 24 and to recognize any member in the chamber to log a protest. And while I think there are some things in the letter that actually are contradictory of one another, it's important that we as a chamber respect each other enough, follow the rules, and allow for protests, even ones that the majority may disagree with, to be respected. So with that, I would urge folks to consent to the letter being entered in the journal for Friday, January 15th. And with that, is there objection to a voice vote? Seeing none, the question before us is whether to grant consent under Rule 24 to have the Representative Williams' letter entered in the journal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Consent is granted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Harrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers. Members, I just want to first members, I want to acknowledge the MLK Parade is canceled this year due to the COVID pandemic. As you all know, the parade really centers on honoring our elders and those who walked with Dr. King. We do have one of the largest parades in the entire nation right here in Denver, and I want to thank so many of you all who have come and attended the parade in the past. Your presence is appreciated. The folks on the MLK Commission have asked that people have virtual MLK celebrations and honorings on their own. And if you do so, please record them and send them to the team so that they can promote them or share them. And you can do that and learn how to do that going to www.drmartinlkingjrchc.org to learn how to do a video and also submit a video to the commission. So thank you all and enjoy your day of service.
Representative Soper and Representative Rich. That was a good psych out, Representative Neville.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. We come down here because we're going to be doing a tribute for one of our constituents out in Mesa County, out in Grand Junction. But because we're going to be gone for a month, we just wanted to be here and to let the entire body know some great news that's coming out of Western Colorado. For the first time in the history of the Western Slope, a homegrown company was listed on a public stock exchange. That's ProStar Geocore, and they specialize in being able to map underground utilities, which is of value to the entire state of Colorado, but quite frankly, it's of value to the entire world to know where, say, a pipeline is buried or a water line is buried or an electric line is buried. Their technology, which is patented, has saved lives already. And by going public, we hope this will put Western Colorado on the international map and attract more businesses to relocate to the Grand Valley.
Thank you, Representative Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to tell you how proud we are of this company, and ditto to the words of my colleague, Representative Soper. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two announcements. The first is there will be a march on Saturday, tomorrow, an MLK march tomorrow in Pueblo. It will start at the Vietnam Memorial on Elizabeth and will last for 30 minutes. And then there will be a ceremony beginning shortly thereafter. So for anyone who is in that area, if you please feel free to participate in that. Please do participate in that. We have a retreat that was already scheduled, so unfortunately I will not make it. A couple of years ago, while teaching 6th grade, one of my students attempted suicide. It was a very traumatic time for the entire class, obviously, and a lot of issues came to the surface involving a number of students and things that were going on in their lives and in their homes. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, 11 and 12-year-old kids, as they transition in various ways, struggle a lot with who they are and what it looks like as they move forward and as they grow into the person that they are becoming. This particular situation brought me to my knees in prayer. And after some time, I resolved to give them daily affirmations. And so my teaching partner and I, we would say a refrain to them every afternoon. And that refrain started to take root in their hearts and in their minds, and we saw transformation in the way that they thought of themselves and in the way they interacted with each other. Yesterday, as a result of a conversation I had about this building and the work that goes on here and the people that are here, I realized that that same truth of needing to be affirmed for the inherent value that each of us possess is so true. As elected officials, it is difficult for us constantly being barraged with all kinds of words. And sometimes those words are affirming, sometimes those words are impugning. Sometimes they're words of life, and sometimes they are words of death. I'm sure you all can understand those curses that have been spoken over us, as well as those encouragements. And so I just wanted to announce today my commitment to you that for the duration of time that we are together, I would like at least one time a week to come down and say to you the same thing that I said to my 6th grade students, which we commemorated for them in a bag so that they would always know this truth and carry it with them. You are amazing. You are loved. You are worthy and adored. And I can't wait to see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Luck. Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in the vein of sharing news about MLK commemorations for Monday and what that will look like this year in particular, usually what we do in Aurora is we have a wreath-laying ceremony at the foot of the greater-than-life-size statue of Dr. King, which was a work of yours to bring to the city, which is outside of the branch library named for Dr. King. And then a number of folks from Aurora will go down Colfax and merge into the parade. Now, as you heard, the latter is not happening this year. The wreath-laying ceremony, I believe, is on 8 a.m. Monday at the Fletcher Plaza. This is outside, sort of by definition, so I still need to click through and read details, but if anybody's interested, particularly my colleagues in Aurora, if you don't already have this information, it's on the city Facebook page, it's on the website. I'm sure that masks are going to be encouraged. There's typically an indoor part of this, which I'm guessing may be canceled, but at least the laying of the wreath outside, I believe, is on, and I'm glad it is, and I just wanted to share that information for folks who want to check out further and be part of Aurora's commemoration of the holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Weissman. Is there any further announcements and introductions before we move forward, folks? There is one resolution that we must statutorily introduce. It's the water projects resolution. So I wanted to make sure we did that with everybody here in full transparency. So Mr. Gregorio, introduction of resolution.
HJR 21-10002 by Representative Arndt, also Senator Donovan, concerning approval of water project revolving fund eligibility list administered by the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority.
House Joint Resolution 1002 will be assigned to agriculture, livestock, and water. Okay, back to announcements and introductions. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, February 16th.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in adjournment until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, February 16th.